you. Calling to order the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Raritan Township, New Jersey, regular meeting, July 18th, 2024. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied by the placing of a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board at the municipal building, filing same with the township clerk, and transmitting same to the Hunterdon County Democrat, the Courier News, the Star Ledger, and the Trenton Times. Roll call, please.
Chairwoman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Here.
Vice Chair, Ms. Rasul Damji.
Here.
Mr. Steve Farcio has asked to be excused. Mr. Randy Block.
Here.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Here.
Ms. Lindsay Cool-Brangel. Here. Ms. Lorette Cretina.
Here.
Ms. Donna Drews has asked to be excused, and Mr. James Miller.
Here.
Board professionals, Board Attorney, Mr. John Drill.
Here.
Township Planner, Mr. Jeffrey Vaccarella.
Here.
Board Engineer, Mr. Rakesh Darji.
Present.
Traffic Consultant, Mr. Jay Troutman.
Here.
Board Planner, Ms. Jessica Caldwell. Township Landscape Architect, Mr. John Morgan Thomas.
Here.
Board Stenographer, Ms. Jackie Clapp. And Board Secretary Taylor Vaughn here.
Can I get a motion to approve the absence of Steve Farcio and Donna Drews?
I'll make a motion.
Roll call, please.
Chairwoman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Rasul Damji.
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay Cool-Brangel. Yes. Ms. Lorette Cretina.
Yes.
Mr. James Miller.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to comments, announcements, distribution, correspondence, and meeting minutes. I do have one announcement. I'd like to we have our pamphlet, our Board of Adjustment pamphlet. Steve, you'll be so happy. So I want to thank Taylor and Jeff, Rasul, and Lindsay for their efforts to help us put this together. This is a pamphlet basically focusing on the residential area, and it says who the Board of Adjustment is, if you're going to, reasons coming before the board, what would be required if you come before the board, what the application process is, what the hearing is like, and last but not least, once you're approved, what's next. So I think everyone did a good job, and they are.
Thank you to you too.
Yes, thank you. They are in front of the desk at the zoning department, so thank you again. Okay, moving on to this evening's applications.
I do actually have an announcement I forgot to place on the agenda is our application CE Main Street, which is 181 CE Main Street application, 181 Old Clinton Road or Croton, Jeffrey? Croton. That application is scheduled for the August 15th meeting, and a time extension was granted by the applicant to October 31st.
Okay. Okay, before we start the applications tonight, I see a lot of new faces in the audience, so I would like to just take a moment and maybe provide some information of what will happen here. So first, welcome. So tonight we have a list of applications, and each applicant will come up. Their attorney, if they have one, will present the application, and we'll go through a series of testimonies from either the applicant and their professionals. After each applicant, after each individual, questions are allowed, and we usually go to the board professionals first, our board members, and then anyone that's in the audience that would like to ask questions of that witness. Following all the testimony, before the attorney closes, anyone that wants to make a comment for or against or anything you'd like to say, that is when you could come up and say whatever you would like. Good, bad, or in between. We ask you to please be professional. Also, we have several applicants tonight, so just so you're aware, we only go till 10 o'clock, and we have to split our time. So if you are here for one application, it may get finished tonight, it may not, it may run over several meetings, just so you're aware. Also, if you're talking, we may ask you to just step out. And finally, just to let you know, the board members are all volunteers, putting in their time to reviewing and assessing all the materials in order to assess against our township ordinances along with our professionals We rely on them and especially our board attorney in order to do our best job to be fair. Okay, so with that, I'd like to move to the applications tonight. Our first application, BOA case number 10-2021. Applicant Esco Precision Inc. Location block 36.02, lots 14, 15, and 16-16. That is 7, 11, and 17 Royal Road. The application is for a time extension request. Would you like me to read this into the?
It appears the applicant's not here, but for an extension request, the board could consider this in the absence of the applicant being here. You could ask Jeff for input, because this is, I would consider this a minor extension, like a technical extension. They need it. They're so close to getting the plan signed. So unless any board members have an objection, we could just ask Jeff to address that. There was a letter. I want to read the letter into the record so anyone in the public can also hear about it and explain to the board.
Okay, so it's addressed to myself.
Microphone.
Addressed to myself from Ryan Eckley, to whom it may concern. This is a formal request for extension on a deadline for the following in regard to the site plan application for 11 Royal Road in Raritan Township, New Jersey. Condition number 1 in resolution 2024-02 for obtaining final sign off of plans. Condition number 15 in resolution number 2022-08 for obtaining zoning construction permits. Due to unforeseen delays, we are requesting a 2-month extension to be scheduled in front of the board on July 18th, 2024. Should you have any questions, I can be reached at such and such. Thanks, Brian.
So, condition 1 of resolution 2024-02 says the applicant shall revise the site plan and other documents referenced above and signatured on the site plan by July 5, 2024. Now, he's asking for a 2-month extension that would bring him out to September 5, 2024. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, in your opinion, is that realistic?
That's realistic. There's already been a pre-construction meeting and it's been addressed to the applicant.
So have all the revisions been made, and it's just that time
Yes,
has expired on how long you have to sign them?
that's correct.
Okay. And then condition 15. So resolution 2024-02 was the resolution that memorialized a second extension. They had a first extension, they had a second extension. This is the third extension we're seeking. The underlying resolution 2022-08 memorialized the grant of use variance and C1, C2 variance, as well as exceptions, and preliminary and final site plan approval. Condition 15 gave them until January 5, 2024, which is long gone, to pull permits. Now they're asking for a 2-month extension on that, which doesn't make sense. Maybe the board should interpret that as a 2-month extension from tonight. So if we interpreted it that way, they would be looking to extend to September 18th. Your opinion, is that enough time for them to get their zoning and construction?
I believe so, based on their schedule of August.
I understand, based on their schedule. And
Yes.
you might want to, the board might want to
Additional time.
give them some additional time, so they don't have to deal with this again. This thing has been like an ongoing thing. They're close to the goal line, but they're not there yet.
Jeff, what would you recommend?
The
4 months.
August, September, October,
November.
Guys, can you just speak a bit more into the microphone? The people on Zoom are having trouble hearing you.
I suggested a 4-month extension from tonight to obtain zoning and construction permits.
That would be November 18th, 2024, correct?
That's correct.
So that's Jeff's recommendation. Extend condition number 1 of resolution 2024-02 to September 5, 2024. And extend condition number 15 of resolution 2022-08 to November 18, 2024. Anyone want to make that into a motion?
So moved.
Second. Should I vote?
Chairwoman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Russell Domji,
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Farrow,
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay Cool Brengel,
Yes.
Ms. Lorette Kratina,
Yes.
Mr. James Miller.
Yes.
Okay, moving to the second application, board case, BOA case number 10-2017, applicant Vicky and Robert Morris, location 133 Copper Hill Road, applications for a time extension. Do you want me to read this in?
But if anyone or either of the Morrises here, you guys should come up. They're coming up. I'm just going to read their letter. This is a letter addressed to the board secretary dated July 11, 2024. Dear Ms. Vaughn, in regard to the above property, by the way, is 133 Copper Hill Road, which is block 84, lot 27.01. You guys can come sit down at the table.
Here? Here?
Yeah, you can stand or you can sit, up to you.
Okay, thank you.
We needed to sell our farm at 143 Copper Hill Road prior to beginning construction on 133 Copper Hill Road. We tried to do this for around 2 years, but were unsuccessful due to the difficulty of selling large properties. This was followed by an additional delay due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which began soon after the variance expired. So, by the way, this variance memorialized in resolution 2017-21, and the condition, there were 2 conditions. Condition number 1 required revision of plans by June 7, 2018. And condition number 4 required them to obtain permits and complete construction by December 7, 2018. They say this was followed by an additional delay due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which began soon after the variance expired. When did the pandemic start? Didn't it start in 2020?
March 7th, 2020.
Yeah, so the pandemic was almost 2 years after the variance expired. With all the uncertainty and unknowns associated with COVID-19 and following shutdowns and spiraling prices that followed the worsening of the pandemic, we did not go ahead with building on 133 Copper Hill Road. We've now decided that we will not, and we want to sell this property. We have recently placed 133 Copper Hill Road on the market and have potential buyers. We'd like to know if we can extend condition 4, transfer this to the new owners once the sale closes. So in a minute, you can hear from the Morrises, but this is a different a very different situation than from ESCO. ESCO, they've made the plan revisions. They also had delays, but they made the plan revisions, and the construction department can't sign them unless there's an extension.
Mhm.
And they're ready to apply for the construction permits, but the construction department's not going to review it unless it's extended. Here, this variance expired in 2018. They want to sell the property. The problem is they want to extend the condition number 4, the time to obtain permits and complete construction, but they haven't even made the plan revisions. So they want to sell the property. Inevitably, in my opinion, let's say the board extended the time to obtain the permits, they're going to sell to someone, the new owner, invariably is going to want some changes. So you can hear from the Millers, but if you ask my advice, this is one of the few cases where, my opinion, you should deny the extension. This variance died by its own death in 2018, and someone should have to reapply for it. Whoever's going to live in the house should reapply for it, because that's the person who's going to, want whatever is to be done there. But why don't we get the 2 Millers sworn in? Can you both raise
Morris.
their hands? Sorry, Morris's. Do both of you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Can you both identify yourselves for the record?
Vicky Morris.
Into the
Annie, you got
microphone.
to nice
Vicky
and loud.
Morris. Vicky Morris.
And I'm Richard Morris, not Robert Morris.
Okay. You heard what my advice to the board is. Explain to them why they should extend this when you haven't even done the plan revisions. And if you sell this, unless you know that the potential buyer is going to do exactly what you're going to do, that person's going to end up coming back here anyway. So why shouldn't they just come back here and apply for the whole thing? Explain to the board.
Okay, we do have a buyer for the property, and in sorting everything out for the contract, we knew that we knew the variance was expired. I came to the township to ask what the procedure was for them to apply for a new variance and what had to be done. And I was told that it might be easier just to redo this one. So that's why we did it, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. You raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're making in this matter is the truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, they spoke to you about it?
They spoke, yes, they spoke with me a couple times.
And what did you say?
I brought to their attention that there was a resolution and that if somebody were to build on this, a planning variance was required. There was one from 2017. It's passed, it was past its expiration, but it's,
So what she's saying is you told her.
I didn't say it was going to be, rather than reapply.
Variance, come and ask for an extension. That's what she said,
It's-
There's nothing wrong with that to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it. I'm just giving you he's right, that it would be easier for
Right.
you if they extended this instead of make someone come back for a new one, but
Okay, so we probably have an issue with that. We've had a lot of residents' applications come before the board. It's a little confusing at times to them. And I'm not sure why you would want to sell it and then have them live up to your plan. So I am thinking that it's not really, I think we should consider what you originally were saying is that they need to figure out how to apply for new variance when they buy your property.
Okay, we were told by the realtor that it's oh, I'm sorry. We were told by the realtor who'd spoken to the buyer that it's a builder. He's going to build, he wanted our plans, we would give them to him when the property closed. And he was going to build a ranch, a single story, the same as ours. Now, if he really does that, I don't know. That's just what we were told, and that's what we began this working from that. So
my suggestion is, whoever the buyer is, tell them that they need to apply for a new variance. And you can they might want to make that a condition of the sales contract.
Right.
But, I mean, this thing was like last year or even 2 years ago. This thing was, this expired in 2018,
Mhm.
Well, and if you look at it, we approved it.
2017.
Right, but if they're going to come with a variance, a new request with the same plans,
It might be, right. It might
I
be a
would
very
think it would
short
be
hearing.
a quick,
Yeah.
because we've already seen it. Now, some of us weren't there.
Some of you have seen it. others
Yes, some
are new.
of us have seen it,
Right,
others
if they
have not.
came in with the same plan.
Right.
Presumably, can't make any guarantees. I want to make that clear. Presumably, it would be granted,
Mhm.
and it wouldn't take a real long time to be granted, because if they're not making any changes, the board could rely on a lot of the findings that it already made in Resolution 2017-21.
Okay,
And we have never done this before.
Maybe
6
there was
years?
One other application that, where you didn't grant an extension and they had to come back. Normally, you try to avoid having to do a do-over,
Right.
but I think there's been one do-over. This would be probably the second do-over, probably in 20 years.
But we've never extended, we've never had something 6 years old and then come in and say, yes, we'll grant the
Correct.
extension.
This, right, if you did this, This would be a first.
Yeah, and that's what we're a little concerned with.
No, I understand that. And he didn't say that we would get it. He just said that would be the quickest and the easiest way to try.
Mhm.
So
Okay. So,
So do you want them to vote, which probably they're going to deny the extension, or you want to withdraw the request? Just have someone come in with an application.
I think we should just withdraw it. You will just withdraw it and they can
So
begin
the board
their own.
secretary to note they've withdrawn the request for the extension.
okay,
Thank you for that.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, moving on to, oh, do we want to go to the Fud Shop first?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, BOA case number 12-2020. Applicant is the Fud Shop Land Group LLC. Location block 36, lot 65, 10 Millbrook Place. Application is for a minor site plan with D variance relief for manufacturing use and residential use in a B3 zone. And we have a letter. You want me to read it?
Yes,
Or-
please.
Okay. Dear Ms. Vaughn, stated July 16, 2024. Per my email yesterday, please be advised that the applicant requests being taken off the calendar for the July 18th meeting. The reason for the removal is that the planning review revealed an issue that will require an additional D variance. It is my understanding that the applicant's planner, Jim Kyle, discussed this issue with the board's attorney, Mr. Drill, and both are in agreement that applicant needs to renotice for this additional D variance relief. If possible, we would like to be put this on the agenda for the September 5th meeting. Please advise. Thank you. Lastly, the applicant grants the board an extension until November 2024.
So, that's the board secretary. Is that date available?
Yes.
Okay, if they're gonna, this is a notice issue, so they're gonna have to renotice.
Mhm.
This is not being continued, no need for further notice. This is not being continued, this is being rescheduled, new notice.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next application for this evening. BOA case number 05-2024. Applicant is Countryside Properties LLP. Location block 74, lot 5.39, 359 Old York Road. Application preliminary and final site plan with D variance for proposed 3 multifamily residential buildings. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board.
I'm sorry, hold on. So we have 2 applicants. It's 7:30. So that's,
Give each one an hour and 15
And
minutes.
we'll have a break, right? For about 10 minutes.
so approximately an hour.
Okay,
Okay, and we're just going to try and break it up and give everybody the same amount of time.
That's right, he's the attorney for both applicants anyway.
I'm
You
gonna
could-
be here-
You could talk for the whole
I'm going to be
time.
here with you all night. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Stephen Gruenberg Law Office on behalf of Countryside Properties LLP. It's our application for a D1 variance and C variance, along with preliminary and final site plan approval.
Do we really have to tell you to slow down?
You got to slow down.
Okay,
How many?
you just gave me an hour. That's
I understand, but if you don't slow down, you're gonna cost more than an hour when they ask you. to
She'll
slow
throw
down.
something at you.
Okay. The applicant is the owner of the property known as Block 74, Lot 5.39, and it's 359 Old York Road. And the property is a little over 6 acres, where 3 acres is the minimum required, and it's located in the O2 Business Office Zoning District. And the applicant's predecessor in title had secured approval for an office development by way of Planning Board Resolution 29-2003. And that had been partially developed with paved parking, curbing, and drainage facilities, but no further development occurred on the property, and it's been sitting in that condition for a long time. The applicant is pleased to present this type of application to actually finally bring this property to development in an appropriate way by having senior housing that will include some affordable housing units within it. It'll be 3 11,725 square foot buildings that'll consist of 2 and 3-bedroom townhomes with related site improvements. There'll be 20 market rate units and 4 affordable units. And we'll have testimony with respect to the breakdown of those units. The use is not a permitted use, but you'll hear planning testimony as to the special reasons why this senior housing with affordable housing is very appropriate for this and particularly suited for this particular piece of property. I have provided the proof of service and publication of the notice of hearing, and I think the board had actually found that at the last meeting that this was scheduled and continued to this date, and I provided the original proofs to Ms. Wong. So I have a few witnesses this evening. I will have actually Wayne Ingram will be both our engineer and planner, and Jeff Fleischer will be our architect.
Mr.
And
Ingram, is he gonna start with the
what I
engineering
was going to
testimony?
just say, he's going to start with engineering, then I will call Mr. Fleischer to do the architecture.
How to spell Fleischer?
Fleischer. And then I'll recall Mr. Ingram for the planning testimony. And boy, is it hot in here.
Feel free to take off your tie and jacket like I do.
Yeah, I'll try to wing it for a little while. I'm old school, man. So I'd like to call both Mr. Ingram.
I have a very, very quick question
Uh-huh.
before we get started. What was it zoned prior to 2003?
What was it zoned?
Was it still office or was it a different?
I believe it was office, but I don't know for sure.
was it- yeah. Okay.
So do you want to swear both witnesses in at the same time?
Correct. And I also want to swear in all board experts that are participating in this application. So can Mr. Ingram and Mr. Fleischer please stand up? And both board experts participating, please stand up. And everyone raise their right hand. And does everyone swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? And we'll start down there. I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay. So just to ask our fortune item, is that their name? Okay, so let's, Mr. Ingram, start off this, for the record, your name?
Sure. Wayne Ingram, INGRAM.
And you're going to be the applicant's
Engineer and
engineering
planner.
expert and planning expert.
Correct.
Jeff Fleischer, and you're an RA in the state of New Jersey, registered architect? Yes, I am. And you're going to be the applicant's architectural expert? Yes. Just for the record, Jeff, let's go right around the horn, right?
Jeff Raritan Township.
Rakesh Darji, Raritan Township Engineer.
Jay Trout, board traffic consultant. Okay,
Mr. Ingram, can you please give, I know you've been here a gazillion times, but can you please give the board the benefit of your qualifications?
Sure. I'm a licensed engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing engineering for 20 years, licensed for about 15. Appeared before over 75 municipalities in the state, including many times before this board. And I've been licensed as a planner for over 10 years. And again, have performed in a similar capacity before those boards, including this board.
And your licenses are up to date.
Yes.
I offer Mr. Ingram as an expert in the fields of engineering and planning.
I think we've all seen Mr. Ingram enough to say yes.
I want to ask if any members of the public have any questions about his qualifications or at this point.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions about his qualifications? Or online?
Anyone on Zoom have questions on the qualifications?
Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward.
You accepting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Ingram, can you please give the board an overview of our proposal on this site?
Sure. And what we put up on the board is our site plan exhibit. That is dated 7/10/24. We want to mark that A1.
Well, is it in the board file?
We submitted it.
Doesn't have to be marked. In fact, my suggestion is, how many people in the public are here on this application? So let's put the exhibit over here, facing this way. Anyone who can't see, move over there, but move right down here. There. Or move it down there, take your pick. One or the other, so people in the public and the board can see it and the professionals can see it. The only people who are not marking this exhibit as an exhibit, it's submitted in the board files and part of the file. This isn't it, is that, this was emailed in, but that's not. Right here.
Okay, that's what I saw. I knew it was-
Okay, I just want to confirm, the digital copy of this is in the box, right? That's what presumably I got it from? Not.
Don't have we have a PDF.
That's on problem. Okay, no problem. I just
Jessica,
assumed-
Jessica, is the diagram on your page 6 the same? Did you pull that from this?
Page 6 appears to be the site plan.
Site
from the
plan,
plan
okay.
set. Yeah,
Thank you.
it's just the uncolorized version.
It is, right?
The one that you submitted.
Okay, thank you.
This is a copy of the one from the Dropbox, you have a different date. That's from the Dropbox. That thing has a July date.
Pretty sure we turned in another one. I have 15 copies if the board wants of that one. but I did turn- Sure.
We don't know anything. You can share. You guys share and we'll share.
Then you said one, they will share it.
Yeah, those two will share. Randy and I
Put it on
share.
the audience also.
Yeah.
Everyone that is on by Zoom, please just give me a couple minutes. I will have this available for you to see by Zoom.
Heard that. It's basically the same.
Now, can you make sure tomorrow that you email, in, if you haven't already, A1, which is. Look at the date on A1, the lower right-hand corner.
5124.
Yeah, what's the date?
That was 710.
7/10/24.
I'm almost positive we turned it in, but
Well,
if we,
where is it then?
I don't know if we email it in.
You brought these, you didn't bring one with 7/10?
No, I didn't, because we have these for the last meeting that got
Is
postponed.
this the same as that other date?
This has a turning template on it. That is the only difference.
All right, listen.
Mark one, A1, and the other
The other
A2.
one, this gets, I knew, it. This is submitted to the file. That is A1, which is, give it a description. What is
Site,
A1?
site plan exhibit dated 7/10/24, colorized rendering of the site plan. We'll make
So
sure
what
that
you guys have is not exhibit A1.
Okay,
You have it submitted into the file. That's exhibit A1, and they're gonna submit that tomorrow.
okay.
All right, so this property has a pretty long history, not just to the town, but to myself. I actually grew up in the southwest corner, adjacent to this property. My parents still live there. And it's actually also what inspired me to join the board about 20 years ago. I came to the board when this was being approved for office, and then again when the former applicant, who, if anybody knows, John Aldrich, came here to, after he had an office approval, he came in to try to convert it to some sort of housing. I believe it was for developmentally disabled people. And his meeting lasted about an hour before he got up, stormed out, and left Tony Kester, his attorney here.
That sounds like them.
Yeah, basically withdrew the application at that point, even though some residents actually showed up kind of in favor of the idea, because frankly, everybody hated the idea of office. This property is an O2 office property. The O2 zone basically consisted of this and the farmland behind it, which was subsequently purchased for preservation by the county and the township. So essentially what you have remaining here is the only O2 parcel surrounded by all residential, other than to the north, which is the sewer authority. So, basically this property got partially constructed about 20 years ago. He built the parking lot, the lighting, the drainage, never installed the landscaping, which was always a point of contention for all the neighbors because no bond was ever called in. And my entire life, we stared out our back window at a parking lot, an unfinished parking lot. And I can tell you that nothing good ever happened in that parking lot. We would have people doing burnouts in their cars. You'd have parties going on over there, nothing good. And a lot of things have been attempted to be done here. None of them really ever made it to the board. At one point, somebody considered using it for a contractor yard. When they had another facility on Old York Road, they were getting kicked out of because it was in the residential zone. One idea that's been kicked around was an expansion of the sewer plant. All of these always stuck out at me as terrible ideas to put in a residential zone. And that's why we tried to come up with this concept. This is an idea I kind of had, I brought to the applicant because I thought it would be something that would be far more beneficial than having this continue to stay a vacant parking lot, or even worse, turn into the office that it's approved for, or who knows what other use is going to come along the way.
Yeah, what are the permitted uses in the O2 zone?
Well, luckily, a year ago, they removed warehousing, but up until a year ago, that was an approved use that nobody really wanted.
What are the permitted uses today?
I believe what we have are scientific and research labs, indoor recreation facilities, motels and hotels, offices, houses of worship, and childcare centers. So that's really what this zone was intended. But we'll get back to the planning aspect of it later. Just in terms of what we've tried to design and the way we tried to do it. The facility had existing sewer capacity for those office buildings, which again, those buildings were essentially, basically right up to the setback lines on both the south and the western and the northern property lines. So really built out the site other than where the drainage systems are today. But again, all that was really constructed were these parking lot areas that over these 20 years are in complete disrepair. But what we tried to do was hold the existing driveway entrance and then locate the three structures in a way that we're basically right on top of the impervious surface that's already there. So, we're trying to utilize some of what's been done. We're able to actually keep the drainage system completely intact. And this proposal will actually reduce the impervious surface, not only of what was approved, way less than that. It'll also be less than what is actually existing. So they were approved with the office buildings for much more. We're able to keep this to the point that, over the impervious that was already built, the parking lot, we're going to stay at about the same point, a little bit less than what's already there.
Where is that stormwater basin on Exhibit A1?
There's two of them. There's one in the northwest corner and which is the top left. And then there's another one in the front, which is the northeast on the top right of the plan. So from a stormwater perspective, we analyzed this for your board engineer to basically show that there is absolutely no change in the runoff from what it is today to what it is when we're done. And again, it's a slight reduction in impervious. And from a water quality perspective, it's a lot better because right now, all you have is dirty impervious parking lot. When we get done, a little less than half of that will be roof area, which is clean. So, again, that's what we see as a stormwater benefit of the project. Another thing we tried to do was reposition the buildings to push them further from the residents than what was previously approved. We made a slight tweak since our original submission. We were less than a foot deficient in a combined side yard. We just pushed it back half a foot, got the 200 feet, so that meets. We only have one setback variance we're asking for, which is right around 63 feet on the northern property line for the one building. And again, that was an attempt to make sure we shifted the development further from the residents. So yes, we're asking for a setback variance, but if we're talking about something that's adjacent to the sewer plant, I don't think.
What's the setback requirement?
It was a 100-foot requirement.
And the request is to have a setback of 63 feet, but that's along the property line with the sewer authority?
That's correct, yes.
The what what was submitted says 62.85 feet, and then it shows some kind of structure which is 50.81 feet in the upper left-hand corner. Is that an accessory structure that's not subject to?
That's an accessory structure. It's basically our well pump house.
Okay, does that need a setback variance or not?
I didn't see that listed in the letter, no.
All right, I'm asking, we have the letter, is that needed or not?
Jeff said it is.
Needed also?
But again, we tried to locate that in the north corner as far away from everybody as possible. It's basically a shed structure in which the well is going to have a little pump house to make sure it can supply to the units.
And where does it border? That's
Sorry.
50 setback. It's not with the residential properties, right? It's on the other side.
That's adjacent to the
From the north where-
the sewer authority, correct?
Yes, adjacent to the sewer authority, correct.
So I take it what you're saying is, if you moved the development south, you might comply more with there, but it would push it closer to the residences.
Exactly.
So when you eventually get to the planning testimony, it's going to be a C2, that it's better planning to keep it further from residences in the south and have a setback variance in the north.
That's correct. Yeah. So one of the things that was installed originally with the development was the multiple wells. They did all the aquifer testing at that time, showed they had plenty of capacity. So, you know, what we're proposing is actually less water and less sewer. So we approached the MUA, they assigned the EDUs over to the applicant. And what we're proposing will be a reduction in the EDUs over what was required for the office. And that's, you know, partially how we backed into our number of units is, you know, we're not looking to increase our capacity over, you know, what was already allocated for the site. We are also, on the topic of water, we are proposing a water tank in the front. I think there's been some fear over this. This is not a water tower. This is a below ground structure. 30,000 gallon tank located on the side of the driveway purely for firefighting requirements. So again, it's a buried structure. It's nothing you see other than the, you know, the stands for, you know, for the connection of the fire department connection. Of the 24 units, you can see they're broken down into 3 buildings of 8 units. We do have 4 affordable units. That is basically what we're required to have, you know, for a unit or for a development of this size. So we have a very low, a low, and 2 moderate units, you know, as in a compliant breakdown. And we have a plan basically showing, you know, where those units will be located. All the others will be market rate. It is the intention of the applicant to make this a community he owns and would be renting these units. So there were a lot of questions about homeowners associations and private public ownership. We're proposing to keep everything on this property private, owned and operated by the applicant. There won't be a homeowners association that needs to, you know, be reviewed by the board. It'll be a leased community.
So what percentage of the total number of units are affordable?
That's 16.7%, or 4 out of 24.
And will the township get credit towards its 4th round obligation for those 4 units?
I don't see why not. They meet the criteria as affordable.
Do you know?
I don't know, no.
Can I ask the applicant, if someone can contact Fair Share Housing Center before the next hearing session and see if they would agree. Now, in the 4th round, it's going to be different than the 3rd round. There's not going to be these settlement agreements. There's a mechanism, but Fair Share is going to have the ability to object in every single affordable housing matter in the state. So if you could contact Fair Share, I don't know, do you know which of the attorneys at Fair Share has Hunterdon County?
I do not, no.
And find out if they would not object to having any affordable housing units if the board granted the application count towards the township's 4th round obligation.
Sure. Other aspects of the site. We front on Old York Road, which is a county road. The driveway access was previously installed in the last application, so it received county approval. That included widening for the shoulder, drainage. And it was actually for a much higher traffic demand than what we're proposing. So obviously, office buildings of the size that were approved had considerably more traffic than you're going to get out of 24 senior units.
Yeah, also, it's not only that it's 4 affordable units, it's 4 senior affordable units.
Yes.
Chance you can get credit. Yep. 4th rank.
And so, we've already submitted this to the county, and they've, as they previously approved the access, they have no objection to it basically staying as is. So, once we enter the site, we're proposing to have a slight curve to the right. We have a central drive aisle between the 2 units, and that ends kind of like in a T at the back. And the idea there with that configuration was, it allowed us for larger vehicles, emergency vehicles, things like that. They can pull in, turn into that rear T, back up and reverse out of the site, make fairly easy movements getting in and out of the facility. Again, each unit will have, their driveway garage combination for their parking. We also have a number of outdoor parking stalls for visitors that meets the requirements, for this intensity of development. We're providing the required EV charging stations, both outside as well as some units which can be equipped inside as needed. And we are proposing internal sidewalks to the development, though we are not proposing any along the streets. That was a waiver that was granted for the office development, and I can tell you there's no sidewalks anywhere in any proximity to this property that it would make sense to continue them outside the site. And you can kind of see on the exhibit the surroundings. We have Old York Road and residential to the east. To the north, again, the sewer authority. To the south is a single family community on Lytton Road, and again that preserved farmland to the west. In terms of lighting, we're proposing 12-foot fixtures, very modest fixtures for this development because it's residential. We really don't have much of a need to make this, bright like the current setup of, of a large parking lot, much taller structures, much more intense light. That's going to be improved, in my opinion, with this application. And in terms of landscaping, what we got 20 years ago was a grass berm that you could see right into the property. If they had planted the trees and landscaping they were supposed to 20 years ago, you never even know what would be happening here because it would all be monstrous trees. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And so at this point, we're proposing to install landscaping similar to what was approved at that time along that berm to provide a good buffer to the neighbors to the south. To the neighbors to the east, we're going to have street trees. We're going to have trees lining our entry drive. We're going to have some landscaping basically in front of the nearest houses that are being built, tree rows there. And then, along the foundations, we're going to have, your typical residential foundation plantings. And then again, some street trees intermixed, within the community. I think, given how much we've reduced the impervious and the limit of the development, we think it's a pretty, robust plan that'll provide some good coverage, for the surroundings.
Just quickly. What's up on the screen on Zoom? Is that the?
That's the exhibit A1.
That's that.
Oh, you took a picture of it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
So, I mean, that really describes the, the site that we've proposed. I think we've hopefully addressed almost all of the technical comments for the application.
If you go through, I've kind of gone through and highlighted the parts of the reports that I think needed to be addressed because I was sick the last time that this was scheduled. So when we rescheduled it, we had the benefit of the board's professionals' reports, and we did plan revisions to try to address those comments as much as possible. And it's fun to go through a report and see has complied, has complied, has complied. So I'm going to try and just go
Try
through
that
the.
more often.
Get sick more often? No, thank you.
Whatever works.
So I'm going to go through the reports and the professionals can stop me, but I've kind of highlighted the ones that I think needed some type of comment that they've asked for. And starting with Mr. Vaccarella's report, I think just going right to number 15.
Vaccarella's report is dated July 8th, 2024, correct?
Yes. And he requested testimony regarding the potential for expansion of the patio or decking areas.
Sure.
And that the impervious coverage calculations included these areas.
Yeah, so obviously they include what we show on the plan in terms of patio areas. And again, as a leased community, it's not going to be one where, the tenants are going to, be expanding their limits because they don't own it. So, I don't think we, have a written restriction, but, the plan you're being presented is the one that's, proposed. So we're not really requesting the ability for any of these individual tenants to be able to further expand, their improvements.
Yeah, the owner of the property would have to come back before the board for an amended approval to do any type of expansion outside of what is approved part for the site plan.
That's correct, yes.
And 16, the air conditioning units are proposed and the landscaping plan depicts trees and shrubs on the inside of each unit. Buffering should be considered. I'm not.
I mean, whether a person stares at one AC unit, which is their own, or two, the nice thing that we think about this is that, these are residential air conditioning units. What was previously proposed was, with the office building, you had your large commercial, AC units, which were significantly noisier, less attractive. I don't know that I would think any special attention would need to be done to a, residential unit, but, we'll concede to any of the board's requests.
We don't think that's really necessary, however.
We do not know.
But if the board wants it buffered, you'll agree to buffer. Correct?
Sure.
17, 7-foot-high privacy fence, that's consistent throughout, correct?
Correct.
18, he's asking for testimony regarding the possibility of benches and walking paths on site.
So, we put the sidewalks throughout the community. And again, this should be a relatively low intensity driving development. This is 24 units, is relatively small as these types of developments, are concerned. We weren't proposing any, large walking trails, through the development. We're kind of separated by our landscaping and the stormwater systems, and wouldn't really lead anywhere. I mean, if there was a master plan of some sort with the town to have some sort of similar feature on the preserved land, it might make more sense, but I don't know if there'd be much advantage to walking on the outside of this property as opposed to the inside. Frankly, the residents of the single family, may not care for having people walking closer to the perimeters of their property. That would be my interpretation.
We'd prefer to leave it as is.
Correct.
I would just like to comment on that because Wayne's correct in the assumption of perhaps the open space as it is, there's no planned pathways or anything. It's passive recreation, but that doesn't mean in the future the county or township may have some planned walkways and have it more active. So the comment just derived from having a connection from this facility to that county township
Wayne, can you,
plan.
where is the county open space at issue?
Yeah, won't work.
Won't work on the screen. Okay. All right, I'll go all the way across. This is to the west right here. This is the county property.
So all you're
And to the
looking for-
north. To the north. and
Yeah,
the west.
actually, yeah, there is a strip to the north before you get to the sewer authority property, which is further north of that.
So is there the ability to put some sort of extend the sidewalk from where that building or the
The well house, yeah.
Put a sidewalk from the well house to the.
Just to the edge of the lot?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what you're looking for.
sure.
We can do it. Does it make sense to do it? If there's, do you want people walking to the county lot if there's no open space that they can use, people can use there?
Well, if there's no place they can use, you're not gonna walk there, but his point is, if the county does something with it, then to get a sidewalk there, you're gonna have to approach the landlord. If the board wants it now, it'll be in.
If,
That's the point.
and I guess my point is, do you want to encourage
Steve,
people to
Jackie
do?
can't hear you.
My question is, do you want, we'll do it, but do you want that? People encouraging people to walk in that direction
Well,
if
what
there's
is that?
nothing?
Wayne, what's the county open space used for?
Farming. They farm it. That's it.
It's
Preserve
a
farmland.
actively farmed field?
As long as I recall. Yeah. I mean,
I don't think it's, I believe the western.
the western half has
Western
been, yeah.
half is-
I don't know about the northern part.
The western half is farmed. Not suggesting a sidewalk to the western portion. Suggesting sidewalk.
To the north.
What's on the northern portion?
I mean, it looks like vegetation. I don't see any particular trail or anything to connect to,
I
but
understand,
we-
are they farming the northern portion?
They could.
it doesn't, I can't tell.
They could because it's preserved farmland.
You might be wrong.
If you look at my report on page 4, there's a land use map that shows the O2 surrounding with an aerial. It looks like there's a farm field to the north and to the west and a tree line, perhaps. I think the undeveloped portion is much further west than the edge of this property is what it looks like.
But yeah, hearing that, I assume that there's a drawing request.
Yes.
Going to number 19, signage. We're not proposing. it,
We're not
correct?
proposing a community signage. The only thing that was requested was putting some sort of building numbering on the street for emergency purposes. So we would do that, and the sizing and whatever it would be, subject to zoning, but really at the request of any of the OEM professionals who want to weigh in on the application.
So there's no ground sign.
Correct.
Number 20, again, we're doing the building numbers.
Correct.
Number 21, basin responsibility will be the responsibility of the owner of the property.
Correct.
22 on road names.
We provided some options, but again, whatever the township,
22,
whatever the township picks, whether it's our list or theirs, that's fine. We'll coordinate with everybody regarding addresses.
24, testimony regarding landscaping. I think we'll get to that with John Thomas's report.
Yeah, I mean, but we did make the changes to avoid any utility conflicts.
And I think so.
Can someone check? Can no one else check? I'm dying.
No offense, I don't know why you guys are all looking at me. I don't, what do I want? We're not supposed to touch it. That's what I've been told. If we want to open a door, we can open a door.
We'll let the hot air in.
No way, that's better.
That might actually work.
I want an extra 5 minutes on my application.
If anyone in the back wants to open the back door, feel free.
Nice
That's on the rock out there, the
trees.
whole harbor knows that.
Not bad.
Sorry about the interruption.
That's okay. The last thing to address, I think, in Mr. Baccarella's report is just the attachment of the Environmental Commission.
And the majority of the comments basically revolve around our stormwater plan, which again was reviewed by the board engineer. We did provide an O&M manual. It was with our original submission. For whatever reason, it can't be found, so we'll resubmit that. But when the original one was developed, they didn't have an operations and maintenance manual, but we're going to prepare one anyway for the facility moving forward. We've already done so. With regard to the rules that we're operating under. We are not proposing to modify these basins to meet current standards. I think inherently what we're proposing is the benefit to stormwater, less impervious and cleaner impervious. I don't think beyond that, we really need to modify something that's already been approved and as far as I know, doesn't create any drainage impacts today.
Is there some requirement?
No, there's no requirement.
I have a question.
Or the NJDP regulations that it be upgraded? to current
No,
standards?
there is not.
I have a question, and maybe it's just trying to learn. They mentioned G1, and G2.
What's that?
G1 is
A GI, so
GI.
green infrastructure, yeah.
So how is that relevant or not relevant in what you're saying?
It's not
And I
applicable.
don't know, you're an expert, so I can only ask.
Sure, generally, you're using green infrastructure to provide water quality. But we have existing dirty impervious, and it's going to be basically cut substantially down.
You mentioned
So
that.
because we don't have any new dirty impervious, we don't trigger if you create a 1/4 acre of dirty impervious, you need green infrastructure and water quality. But because we're not creating any and we're actually reducing it, it's not required.
Okay, you guys are okay with that?
Yeah, I was gonna speak to that. But yeah, essentially, what Mr. Ingram just said is correct. The current regulations, the actual application as it's proposed actually meets the current requirements. This is one of those situations where they actually benefit from having that existing impervious constructed and having the existing stormwater management system constructed. The requirements basically say that you have, if you exceed more than 1 acre of disturbance, you have to demonstrate that you don't increase runoff at all along the 24-hour hydrograph, or you reduce the peak rate of runoff by certain percentages. In this instance, the drainage basin actually attenuates runoff to the point where as long as you don't increase impervious, the rates are not going to be increased because the basin actually controls the water. So there's no requirement to manage the runoff beyond that. They actually don't increase runoff.
And I totally agree with what you said is based on the current environment,
Correct.
this is gonna be much better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The
Correct.
quality
Yeah.
of water and all that.
Yeah. And then same thing with water quality,
Yes.
because they have existing impervious, they have a net decrease in impervious. So they don't, just by the fact of decreasing the motor vehicle surface, significantly decreasing the motor vehicle surface, they're actually improving water quality.
Thank you.
John Aldridge did something right.
Not if you ask me.
Depends on your perspective. Going to Mr. Dargy's report, which
just
is
have-
dated,
I just have one comment and one question. The fire marshal report, everything has been satisfied.
Yes.
And the county report, the latest we have on file is from March 13th, 2024, and it disapproves the application. I was just wondering if there's been any other memo from them.
No, we did have conversations with them though about it to explain that they just basically didn't understand why we were doing certain things and not. And then we kind of explained to them the history of the project and how it exists. Part of what we did was we gave them the stormwater report that we subsequently prepared for the board. And as far as we know, they're satisfied with the responses. So, we're confident that we'll get an approval from them without modification.
Just for the board's information, legally, the board has to impose a condition subject to county approval. The
Right.
board does not need county approval to grant approval. The board can't deny an approval based on the fact they don't have county.
thank you. Going to Mr. Dargy's report of July 11th, 2024. I'm going to skip right to general comment number 2 on page 4. And I think we provided that testimony that it's what improvements can be constructed without return to the board. There's none because this is going to be it's going to be owned. It's not going to be a condominium or homeowners association. So there won't be a condominium plat for recordation purposes. Skipping then, because there's a whole lot of has complied or satisfactorily addressed.
I have,
Yes, thank you very much for that.
Number 5.
5B.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are requesting the waiver with regard to the 4-foot offset. And again, I think the intent was that you kind of stagger your units. If you look at how we've kind of laid it out, I mean, we're creating some relief on those frontages with the inset for the doors. So I think we're maybe it requires relief, but I think we're kind of complying with the intent. But we'll also let our architect show you the renderings to explain what the visuals are, which may aid in your determination on that.
Does anyone know what the intent behind having that requirement is?
I mean, it's intended for architectural relief, so you don't have flat facades. So they do essentially meet it, but not at the at the 2 units.
Yeah, it's the joint. Yeah, between the two is not, but like we have relief between the garages, there's a setback and then there's a further step back. So again, I think we
So-
meet the intent.
The intent of that, at least in my opinion, the intent of that requirement is met by the fact that you do have recesses in the building, so you don't have a big blank facade.
Mhm.
So I think the intent of that requirement is met, not the actual.
Number 6, we addressed about site signage. Number 7, testimony regarding the mailbox structure and a possible obstruction of
Sure.
site distance.
So, I mean, we picked a location that we thought we wanted to keep it somewhat centrally located. I don't personally believe there's much.
Where
of
is that? Can you show us?
I believe you're right, just as you pass the intersection, was where that was going to be located. So, you know, if you were coming to the T and this was a full road, I think you'd have more of a concern with, you know, cars coming by, but, you know, you're talking at that point of only 4 units past it, and they're going to be going like 5 miles an hour out of their driveway. I don't really see that being like a site triangle issue.
Let's ask Jay to take the plan and walk it up and down the board, point out where the thing is. He's got it on one of the plans. I'm highlighting it in yellow. Demonstrative purpose, it's not.
So again, our intention was to put it there so that we had, you know, somewhat centrally located for the residents. We're not trying to not make them walk all the way to the edge of the development to get their mail.
Oh,
We don't really think it's much of a conflict, but, you know, we'll move it if the board requires.
Again,
Make sure you show it to the board engineer now.
and we're-
So what do you think?
So I do agree that because these are really low volume kind of roadways, it's less of a concern. In many developments like this, a lot of times the mailbox is sort of closer to the front anyway, so folks can sort of stop on their way into the development and get their mailbox, get their mail.
Any better idea for a location?
Yeah, in the front of the development, as you come into the development, it's usually.
Our only concern was with the entry drive, what we didn't want was people parking their car there and inconveniencing people.
Yeah, I was thinking those 3 parking spaces that you have in the front.
I suppose somebody could pull in there. Yeah, if you want to put, we can move it there. We don't object. The only issue is, I don't know if that's an issue with a structure being in the front yard.
That would refer that to Jeff.
Yeah, so that would be a variance relief, or wants to grant it, we'll move
Well,
it.
is that front yard? It would be behind the setback, right? It's behind the front setback.
But
Yeah, but it's the location.
In front of the structure.
But again, if the board thinks it's a better planning idea to put it there, that's a C2 variance.
We don't object.
And your notice, your catch-all, might cover it.
Thank you. So you have given us the reason for why it's better where you are proposing. Rakesh, what do you think? Why do you think there it's better?
Well, only because that way there's no chance of it being an obstruction at all. If it's where I was indicating maybe for putting it. It's not a, if
I would
if it were-
disagree.
Yeah, how about
I-
the convenience?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not convenient. I always go the worst case scenario, somebody breaking in.
Say, we're not hearing.
So I would disagree. I would say where Wayne has it is better. It's in the development. Some stranger coming in and breaking into them.
point two.
I would not want it up
Why
front.
don't you straw poll just. to-
Sure.
Straw poll just to see if I have to do a condition or not. I'm the board attorney. So I don't know what they're gonna do, whether they're gonna grant the application, deny the application. What I do, I need good notes. So either way, I know what to put in the memorializing resolution. So anytime we have an issue like this, I'm trying to figure out, okay, if there's an approval, is this gonna be a condition or not? So
Okay.
you'll hear me at times saying, can you straw poll people to see what they think about the mailbox location, assuming there's an approval, but that doesn't
Okay.
mean there's gonna be an approval.
James?
I like your point of having,
Leave it where it is, leave it where it is.
yeah, leave it where it is, further in.
Lorette?
I actually have another thought. My parents live in a senior independent living community and they have benches outside. And they have benches down by where their mail is collected and they are always completely occupied. It's like you have to fight for a spot because that's so important to the quality of life, the emotional well-being of the residents, to be able to interact with each other. And they always sit together and they're always saying hello to each other, and they are greeting each other because they take that moment to sit there and do it. So I would like to see the mailboxes be located in a spot where you can also put a couple of benches that would enable that socialization. And I was looking at a different spot, actually, sort of heading along the sidewalk toward where the well house is.
Where would that be?
That would,
The well pump, kind of that sidewalk heading toward the well pump.
Shannon,
Wonder,
can you take this again and show everyone where the well house is?
We got it.
yeah, we got it.
Got it?
Yeah.
We got it.
You guys know where the well house is?
Yeah, I think we're talking about right here, the north, top of
Can
the.
everyone look, Wayne's pointing to where the well.
Yeah.
So you're talking about putting the mailboxes there with some benches.
yes, if, that's sort of a spot where it's tucked out of the way, but it gives people sidewalk access. It might just require, a little shenanigans with how those benches are arranged, but I think you need like 3.
I would recommend behind the parking spaces on the other side, because that unit, you would have people in that person's backyard. So you're saying you see a sidewalk. I'm saying the parking spaces that are back there, if you put them behind there,
I love that idea, actually, because
Then you
then
can-
you just put a sidewalk along the edge so that people can get to the benches and the mailboxes.
But I guess what about like the mail person who's doing it? They have to go and how are they turning around? Like at least at this spot, it's easier for them to turn around so that they can fill it and
the
leave.
original spot.
Yeah.
So can you straw poll yourselves on,
Just wait, before that, is it possible to put benches where you're proposing right now?
Yes,
Would that suffice what you're talking about?
I think so, yes.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, so let's,
so then the straw poll would be,
well, let's have a free straw poll, not restricting anyone to any particular
okay,
positions.
going back to James,
Yeah.
what would you,
So this is a straw poll on where you want the mailboxes and whether you want benches wherever you want the mailboxes.
Well, I don't really care too much where the mailboxes are, as long as they're somewhat away from the road, but I do want the benches there.
I agree with James.
Keep in mind, by the way, these are senior citizens, they have to hike to them. I live in
Louder,
a
Jim.
townhouse, well,
You saying that you're a senior citizen?
pardon?
I say, are you saying that you're a senior citizen?
Yeah,
barely,
I became a while back.
Okay.
The point is, you should be, as Jim said, not near the front, near the back. But try and keep the walking distance from all the units somewhat easy, okay? These are older people. Who's got a walker, who's got a cane, okay, who can't walk? Keep that in mind where it's located.
so you're okay anywhere in the back,
To me, toward the back of the development, where it's low.
okay, and benches,
Randy?
I agree with you.
I'm in agreement.
so I'm gonna be more specific. Based on what I've heard so far, you can leave it where you have it, but somehow include benches there.
agreed. We have no objection.
Linda?
I'm fine leaving it where it is and putting benches wherever it makes sense throughout
So
the
now let's
community.
straw poll. Leave it where it is, but add benches. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm fine with that. There you go,
We'll leave it where it is and add benches.
okay,
Good suggestion.
By the way, 3 benches.
3? Frankly, think it lends itself to 2 because
Yeah.
it's all
Okay.
veneer.
You want them to straw poll that?
You have to keep in mind that's by one person's house too, so just make it.
yeah, you
so
have
that
to
it
be
isn't
careful,
invading
3
their
benches is a lot,
front
Thank
yard.
you.
2 benches.
2,
What are we gonna
Two.
decide?
You might want to ask your landscape architectural expert his opinion on this.
Yes,
I think it's two
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold it, hold it.
I think if there were 2 benches facing each other, perpendicular to the sidewalk, that you created a little space there. There's
You can
15 feet
decide.
between the sidewalk and the building, and the
Okay.
mailbox would be there, I think, and I think that would be a nice amenity.
You okay with that?
We agree.
Okay,
Thank you.
next.
Going to 9.
We're proposing private trash pickup.
Mhm.
So the idea here is that people, we're not going to have dumpsters, which again, talking about benefits of this application, we were getting trash enclosures. You'd have, garbage trucks backing up, noises like that. Now we're going to have cans in people's garages. They'll bring them to the street. They'll get picked up with private hauling. So there's no need for a centralized location.
And that's something that the community or owner will make sure is enforced to all of the individuals that live there.
Correct, yes.
And going to page
Yeah,
5.
hold on.
So
So is there
number
any-
9, is that how you answered number 9?
Yes,
Yes, right.
Okay.
it's private collection.
Yeah, but
We're
hold
not,
hold
there's
up for
no
a second.
township, trash maintenance.
So there's a requirement that you have trash enclosure. So you're seeking an exception from having the trash enclosure because you're going to have individual trash and recycling in their garages taken out to the street. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes, as would be appropriate in a senior development. You don't want people having to take trash,
We're going to have to find the ordinance requirements. I didn't see it in a report, but I believe there's a requirement for a trash enclosure on a site plan application.
Yeah, we didn't see that noted, but to the extent that there's an ordinance requirement for it, we would ask for a waiver for those reasons.
Let me just get this down.
Can I go to number 12?
Not yet.
I don't think you have to if it's a townhouse because it has garages, but I could be wrong.
Okay, ready.
Item 12 is,
Did you guys get Lindsay's comment?
Hold on. 296, 75, J. Yep.
Number 12, it's going to be a private road and we would grant Title 39 authority, correct?
correct.
And going to SP 6, we will do that. Site plan 6, if a street name sign is proposed at the intersection, its location should be depicted.
We
on
will
the
depict
plan.
the sign, correct.
And site plan number 9, waiver from the sidewalks. I think we've already testified to that. and the
Correct.
Reasons why.
And the reason for the waiver, not to skip ahead, but since we're on it, is because since there aren't any other sidewalks around, just to enforce that requirement for no good purpose is impractical.
Correct.
To be specific, that particular item was discussing sidewalk along the parking stalls, not external sidewalk. So I just,
So it's the white that's showing on.
Yeah, so I guess the point, I'm sorry if I misunderstood, would be to bring it around to the edge of the parking stalls. We just kind of thought it was excess impervious that we really didn't need because, it's not like if you get to the end of the stall, that's where you're going. You want to get, if you're parking there, you immediately want to turn and go to the residences. You're not going to walk forward to walk left.
yeah,
We just don't think they're going to be used.
given the layout and the size of the development, I wholly agree, but it is a waiver.
Okay.
We agree.
Going to page 6, the sanitary sewer maintenance issue.
So again, it's going to be private. Everything on site would be our responsibility, but, we'll defer to any requirements that the MUA may have for easements, but I don't know if they would require one since it's all part of our private. property.
Which item is this? What?
10 under the grading and utility and drainage. I think that was, I assume that was more related to if we were, selling these as units out, had an HOA, which is not the case.
And going to page 7, number 2, the O&M manual.
We did prepare it. I believe it was turned in, but we're happy to provide it again. We did prepare it for the site.
And I think that's it for Mr. Dargy's report.
I just have one question about sidewalks and just making sure that everything is like handicap accessible and that there aren't going to be any issues with that.
We can't hear you.
Just making sure that the sidewalks and everything are handicap accessible, just not knowing the individuals who will be there, but just want to clarify that.
Yes, everything
included
should
in
be easily accessible. It's a relatively flat site. As I said, it was, it's already been graded out to be flat, so we
Mhm.
don't have any excessive slopes.
Yeah, I have one more question too. So if any of the residents are taking advantage of our link service, it's intended that the link van would pull into the driveways to pick up residents if they were using it?
Either that, or again, with the T intersection we have at the back, I mean, it's very easy for somebody to make a left, back up and K turn out in either way. I think we've shown here like basically the township fire truck circulating through there. So if the fire truck can do it, so can the lake.
And there won't be any parking on the streets, just given the size of them.
That's correct. We
It'll be
exceed the
enforced.
parking requirements for this development. We wanted to make sure that we weren't deficient, with that.
With respect to Ms. Caldwell's report, I don't think we need to address it now because all of that is planning testimony unless there's anything in particular from a site layout we want to discuss now, but she does a really good job of outlining the relief that we need and the standard of law. So.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So Steve, as far as the appendix A of Jessica's report, who is going to address that? Because there's some benefits there of what I see.
Yeah, that's all the planning arguments. That'll be kind of the end of our
Okay.
Yeah, what I'm going
Yeah.
to do, we're just actually doing engineering now, and then
Okay.
we'll call
Just
the
wanna make
architect,
sure.
and then we'll come back on the planning.
How about septic system? Who is going to address that?
We're
How about
connected
what?
to sewer.
Sewer.
So we had EDUs associated with the office development, and we're going to utilize those. They've been transferred to the applicant, and we're reducing the sewer flow from
And
what it
that's
is
what I
today.
wanted to make sure I read it right.
Yeah, we have all the required capacity. Senior housing is a lower demand than regular, so it allows this to work with a reduction.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So we were,
I have a quick question. May have missed this. Talk about a well house. These units.
Jim, can someone pull that microphone up to Jim?
Hear my question?
I'm sorry.
no,
I'd like to know, I must have missed it. But how are you going to provide water service to these units?
Water, so we have a well, there's already been well testing was done for the prior application. We're using less water than was approved for the wells that already exist. And we're installing a well house, which will provide the pressure in the community. And then for firefighting water, we have an underground tank in the front that meets your ordinance with regard to size.
Has any consideration been given to getting public water?
We did look into it. It's very distant. It's in Reddington. So you would have to bring it across the river and down. Everyone over here is on well,
There's water service on Old York Road.
further down,
No, further up.
north.
The corner of, remember the name of the street? No, I lived in another undeveloped. There's no water service there.
I mean,
On the corner.
We had everything on Lytton Road as wells, everything across the street as wells. I mean, if it's in, it wasn't under the
houses are on
utility
wells,
maps.
But there's a water line comes down Old York Road from that direction.
From the south,
Yeah, from the south.
I mean, we contacted the utility company. They told us where it would come from and how far away it was. They're the ones that told us it was in Reddington across the river. That was their line. That's what they said.
Tell you what, Jim, you want them to check it out?
But
Yeah,
irregardless, we have the wells, we have the capacity, and we have the water tank.
Okay, but taking well water from 24 units could affect the homeowners in the surrounding area.
I don't.
Wayne, if you want to argue it out, go for it. Or you could just check it out and see if that's right or wrong. If it's wrong, it's moot. And if it's right, you can argue it out next time. But if you want to argue this time, go ahead, argue.
That's fine. We'll take a look, but the reality is, I just think it is important to note that there was a full well testing performed with multiple wells and a drawdown for the office development. They proved to the board at that time that a much more intense water demand at that time did not impact the neighbors' wells, and those wells were approved.
They approved to the planning board.
Under your ordinance. with
I
your well
understand.
ordinance. So,
None of these guys witnessed that or heard any of the testimony, just so you know where he's coming from.
yep.
so we got John Morgan Thomas's report dated July 18th, 2024, and I love all the has complied. And the last statement was on plant selection for 2 of the plant substitutions, which we're willing to do.
Thank you. We'd like to see that you're not eating a lot of your points.
Yeah, do our best.
And I think that's it for the professionals' reports.
I just have one question. Wayne, can you provide a visual of what the 30,000 gallon tank is going to look like? Is it, I know it's underground. Is there a fire hydrant at the top of it? I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't.
It's like a standpipe, basically, with a
Standpipe?
hose connection, so that they would tap into it in a vent. You know, that there's those two pipes that stick up out of the ground. Other than
Okay.
that, it's just a giant plastic septic tank that's 10 times anything you've seen.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think
Anybody?
those standpipes only stick up like 3-4 feet.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Okay. Do the professionals have any other questions?
I do not.
Does the board members have any other questions? Anybody in the audience have questions for this witness? Please come up to the microphone. Please provide your name and your address, and you'll need to spell your name.
And again, remember, this is questions only of this witness at this point. Okay, can you please spell your name?
My name is Don Barnacle,
Spell your last name?
Barnickel. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I live at 3 Wells Road. Wayne, very thorough presentation. I really enjoyed it, but I do have a couple of questions. You say that it's going to be, the units are going to be rented. And the question I have is there going to be on-site management? One of the units going to be dedicated?
That's a really good question. Make sure everyone hears it.
The question is there going to be on-site management of the facility? Is one of the units going to be dedicated to a site manager or a rental office? So,
Yeah, no, we are not proposing.
okay,
that.
so it'll be done remotely.
Correct.
And the follow-up question to that is, if there is no on-site, how are you going to prevent, let's say, senior citizens from kind of unofficially subletting their additional bedrooms?
Yeah, that would be a violation of the lease term.
Steve, can you say that to the
Correct. He
microphone?
wants to know, how would you prevent it? Not that it would violate the lease. How?
Yeah,
if
and I'm
you don't have someone
I'm
on site.
getting to that because it would be in their lease terms. And
Right.
so if there's any type of subletting of the units, the landlord would have the ability
He
to enforce
understands
that either by eviction.
Right.
He understands that. He wants to know, how would you know if there's
Right.
no
If the
on-site
landlord's
management?
not on
I
site.
would say what's going to happen in these communities is the neighbor's not going to be happy about it. The neighbor's going to call landlord and say, I think he's doing
That's an
something he
answer.
shouldn't be doing, and they're going to resolve it. I don't know that having a person there full-time does much of a better job policing it than not.
I know with my parents, they had a homeowners association and a senior development, and they did definitely police, what was going on. But I just wanted to know what was going to be proposed for this site. Another question for you, and that is, you
Before
had,
you do that, is it possible to enforce something on that one? Based on what he's suggesting,
But
would you guys
that's how
have
you
any
enforce it.
process?
You can only enforce things if you're made aware of an issue. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like any other zoning ordinance or anything. You do your best you can.
Well, there are certain communities where even if you don't have, there would be a random check or some process to do it.
I hate to be invasive into people's homes
Knocking door, how are you doing? Whatever.
I mean,
There are
usually you
ways.
have to fill out a form that says like how many people are in your home or
Home.
whatever it is when you have a HOA, but
But you have that in a lease
figure that out.
agreement.
Okay.
we wouldn't be able to enforce it in.
You have a
Middle of the
lease that
lease.
identifies who the tenants are and who the occupants are.
Okay, so it's not an HOA, but it's part of the lease. Yeah.
Okay.
the definition
Just
of,
wanna make sure.
the definition of seniors, is that 55 or is that 65?
Another good question.
I believe 55 is the requirement.
55, okay, so you may have some much younger people than, the board has thought, gee, there'll be people in walkers and people with canes and so forth, but you actually may have much more active seniors in
Certainly.
that location. Okay, thank you. And then the next question, you have 12 guest spaces for 24 units, parking spaces. What happens when people want to come in and visit mom and dad or grandma and grandpa? Where's the overflow parking going to go? Since the Old York, there's no parking on Old York. I can either see either Lytton or Wells being used as parking places.
I mean, as I said, I think what we tried to exceed the parking requirements for housing. So, we didn't provide just the minimum. I mean, we thought again that, we meet all of the state requirements for housing and how they dictate you break it up. So, you can't just count a garage and a driveway, the requirement is that you provide those amount of public spaces, because inevitably, people may have those visitors who can't do one of those two. So, based on the state's, requirements and the town's ordinances, we provide the amount that's been deemed acceptable.
Right, and where will overflow, so it's a holiday, and everyone's coming in for Thanksgiving or Christmas or one of the holidays. Where's the overflow parking going to be?
We don't have, we're not allowing street parking. There is no overflow parking here.
Okay. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Donna Hart Forster. I live on 2 Mills Court.
And can you spell your last name, please?
Yeah, it's difficult. HART FOERSTER.
Okay, thanks.
So my question is, you answered the previous gentleman, is the age definitively 55 or you think it's 55?
I believe it's 55.
She wants to not believe. Can you ask your client, is it 55 or is it 60 or is it 65? She wants to know.
55.
55.
Okay, and so these units, these 24 units, from what I understand, are 2 and 3 bedroom residences. Is there a limit to the occupants in each residence?
It could be done as part of the lease, but no, we weren't asking to restrict the number, no.
Okay, so there's no criteria. And what is the criteria for application for these leases?
That's up
Other
to
than-
that's up to the owner when we haven't come up with, lease terms. It's not really the subject of the board's, review.
Well, listen, is the proposal for senior housing over 55 or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it's a legitimate question. What's the criteria, and do you have the application form? Who's looking for what to make sure that the people that are renting there are 55 older or more? That's what she's really
Well,
asking.
that is the requirement of the community. We're coming in saying it's 55 and over. That's part of,
Right.
they're going to have to prove like any other
She
senior
wants to,
housing community.
right,
in
she,
town.
so she wants to know what's the mechanism to make sure that
It would be at the application process. That they would have to provide that to the owner. He would review the application to make sure they met the criteria.
All right, but you're not telling me what the criteria again is. You're saying.
They're going to have to fill out their names and their ages.
Okay, and there's no limit to the number of occupants in each unit.
No.
Okay, so I would ask this board, I know there's been a few, I think, misrepresentations. It seems like nobody is really aware of what the previous use or the previous application was for. I moved here, but is that correct or?
I think we got to do that at comments.
we're going to wait for when you're at the end, you'll be able to make your comments under oath. Right now, it's only questions for this witness.
Okay, but I do have questions. He
Yes.
referenced the previous meeting with John Aldrich, the owner, where multiple homeowners were there in support of a change in application.
Right, he did say that, so why don't we ask him, what year was that?
Around 2006? No.
2000.
Probably 2003, based on the resolutions that were referenced.
Okay, yeah, it could be. I thought it was a little bit
And
later. than
what
that.
board was that in front of?
I believe that was the zoning board.
My point is, there's a lot of
Hold on.
speculation here. There's.
Hold on.
The office application was earlier. That was planning board. Then he came in to make it some sort of a housing development, which was not a permitted use. He was asking for a use variance. I was here.
And the board adopted a resolution in 2006, resolution 2006-5, which dismissed
Yes,
the bifurcated D1 variance for residential units.
yes.
Which board?
This board.
Thank you.
Now,
Which is exactly what he testified.
what is your
So my
question?
question is, I'm sure I could ask for it, but he insinuated that there were a lot of residents here in support of that, and I would.
Yeah,
like
Wayne, you did
to
testify,
see that.
just so you know, you
I
testified.
said some were in support, and I know that because my parents were in support, and I was in support. But I can't speak to everyone in the room and their feelings.
Can I weigh in here? My
It's-
advice to the board is totally irrelevant on whether residents were in favor or not in favor back in 2006. And you shouldn't have even mentioned it, Wayne, because by mentioning it, you opened the door to get asked questions about it, but
That's fine.
it's irrelevant.
Okay.
It's irrelevant.
All right.
I also have a question regarding the acreage. You stated that it's a 6 acreage property, and it meets the 3-acre requirement, does it meet the 3-acre requirement for what was originally proposed for that space, or the new requirement for 24 homes?
Okay, so hold on. What's relevant, in my opinion, to the board is what is the minimum lot size requirement today?
3 acres.
For 24 residential
No,
units?
It's 3 acres. It's not tied to how many,
Oh, it's not? Okay.
it's not tied to how many units. Now, is there a density requirement in the ordinance? No, the answer is because residential is not allowed in the zone. That's why they need a D1 use variance.
Okay.
Because what they're proposing is not allowed in the zone. That's why there's not going to be anything in the ordinance about how many units you can have on, what's the acreage of the?
6.
So there's going to be nothing in the ordinance about how many units you can have on this 6-acre lot because the units aren't allowed in the first place.
Okay. I have another question
And
regarding.
I'm not testifying, that's my legal opinion.
Okay.
I have another question. You also made a statement saying that what was originally proposed was for a much higher traffic demand. Yet, do you know what it was originally approved for? When I moved here in 2005, through the Open Public Records Act, I reviewed as much as I could regarding lighting, air handlers, etc. At that time, and I'm asking this committee to verify this, it was for business use, business hours only, Monday through Friday, nothing at night, no traffic on weekends. So my question to him is, you made a statement saying the proposal for the previous application was for a much higher traffic demand. Is that true?
Yes. There were.
Okay.
Can you just, even though we're going out of order a little, take the microphone, identify yourself, the date on your memo, and can you please read it? Even though I know you're cross-examining Wayne, but this is the board's traffic engineering expert, and I'm not taking anything away from Wayne. He's a civil engineering expert and he's a planning expert, but Mr. Troutman is a traffic engineering expert.
Yes, Jay Troutman. I'm the board's traffic consultant, and part of my review was to calculate the peak hourly trip generation for the residential units, which is 13 in the morning peak hour, 8 in the afternoon peak hour, and 9 on a weekend peak hour. The next thing I did was I calculated the trip generation for the previously approved office space, 75 trips in the AM peak hour, 71 trips in the afternoon peak hour, and 26 trips on a weekend peak hour.
Okay, so when you did that, what conclusion do you draw from that?
The conclusion is that the proposed application is a much lower traffic generator.
Okay. I guess my point is this gentleman inferred that it was approved for hotels and things like that where
I don't think he did. I believe what he was referring.
could have been a much higher
Right,
traffic demand.
Right, because I believe he was saying some permitted uses might have a higher traffic demand. You might want to ask him which permitted uses would have a higher traffic demand. He did say some permitted uses would have a higher traffic demand, but he didn't say which ones. I asked him separately, what are the permitted uses in the zone? And he answered my question: research labs, indoor recreation, hotels and motels, offices, and childcare. So why don't you ask him which of those permitted uses would have higher traffic generation than proposed?
If you built out any of those to what's permitted in the ordinance, every single one of those would have a substantially higher traffic demand. The floor area ratio in the zone is 75%. We're at 13.3. If you covered, 75, what is essentially, 4 acres of, usable occupiable space in any of those uses, the traffic would be intense.
And I guess my question would be, would that even be more traffic? This is less traffic than if it was a 9 to 5 medical offices, Monday through Friday, even having 24 units with no limit on occupants.
The key is really, as the traffic engineer testified, is the peak hours. So you don't generally have 24 senior units are not all heading out during rush hour. If you have office buildings, your morning rush, your afternoon rush are going to be very impactful compared to the fewer trips a day generated by retired people who generally don't leave in the middle of or during those peak hours to avoid that traffic.
The occupants are 55 and above.
Some
Wouldn't
may
you
be
think what is the limit for children? There's retirement places in the township across from Aspen Ice. I don't remember the name of them, but there's. I'm sorry. I guess in addition to what I was asking before is what are the requirements for the applicants that are there? Are they going to have smaller children? Is there a guideline in regards to having older children,
You know what?
teenagers, more
When you
cars?
guys come back, can you bring information about the expected tenants and occupants?
Yeah, especially if there's like anything regarding schooling, too, like if someone were to be there, I think there is a limitation that they can only be there for a certain period of time, but
But they're following the 55 and older guidelines. There are guidelines.
I understand. But rather than
And we
the
need-
board members telling
Yeah.
them what the guidelines are, put it on the applicant to look it up and
We'll
report
come
back to
back
the
with
board.
it. That's
Yeah.
fine. We'll come back with it.
You also stated that the sewerage is less of a demand because of elderly people. And this is a question, I guess, for the board too.
No,
From what
it's
I-
not a question for the board.
Okay,
It's a
so,
question for the guy who testified, and then later
Okay.
you can make comments to the board when it's that part of the hearing.
so then when you made the assessment regarding the public sewers, whether they could accommodate the residents in 24 units, what number of people did you
It's not
assess it
based,
on?
it's not based on the number of people, it's based on the number of units. So, and this is state prescribed requirements, and that's how EDUs are calculated. So different uses have
Okay,
different
Stop it.
requirements.
What is an EDU?
Equivalent dwelling unit. So that's how sewerage is given capacity within the township. You know, you have a certain amount, office is based on the square footage, units is based on, there's a, if you're in a regular apartment, there's a number, and if there's a senior apartment, it's a different number that's lower. So they're just, as our capacity goes, this project requires less EDUs from the sewer.
And that was confirmed by the RTM.
That's correct.
That's correct. Just as the board's engineering
Didn't
expert.
hear you.
That's correct.
I have another question regarding building this much on such a small property. I know it's 6 acres, but between the footprint of the buildings, the parking lot, et cetera, has it been evaluated the runoff to the homes in that area? Because a lot of the homes do flood. And I would have to go take a consensus to state, but there are homes in that neighborhood that flood, and is this going to make
So do this.
the
Are you,
chance of flooding worse?
put it in terms of a question. Are you aware that there's some homes in the area that flood, first of all?
Yes, my basement flooded when I lived next door 10 times. We
Okay.
lost everything we owned, but
So, hold it. Then her next question is, so what is being proposed here so that doesn't increase flooding on the neighboring homes?
the issue, a lot of the issue of flooding is the poor permeability of the soils. But I mean, the reality here is that we had a fully designed stormwater system that's been built for the site for the impervious that's already there. We are reducing the impervious from what already exists. So you're not going to have any drainage impacts from the project because we're actually making it better.
So I guess my last question is, you said you live next door to this property, you looked out your window, seeing the black top. Where was that? Because the people whose backyards are directly looking at this property are here and online.
I'll show you. I live right, my parents still live right there. The sewer easement of this property runs through their property.
And you're saying, Wayne, that from there you can see the blacktop on the site?
Sure could.
Do it again.
This is Steve's house. He's
And
online
he was my neighbor, right here.
Right here, block.
Lisa's right
Hold
here.
up.
No, that's my other neighbor.
Are you saying block 74 lot?
I know, what we're trying to pass this, so we can,
Sounds correct.
That is.
sorry. I didn't mean to jump.
Pretty.
5.35, yes.
So, Mr. Ingram, what's the lot and block that your parents' house is?
Block 74, lot 5.35.
And your testimony is from that house, you can see the blacktop?
Yes.
If it's questions only, I can't comment.
that-
It's a
that's his
shame that this is
testimony.
Not being captured.
What is it? That's his testimony. And when it's time for you guys to make your comments, I'm going to swear you guys in and you'll testify.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Any more questions from the public? And we're getting close to, we're going to need a break. Hold on, please. Yeah, okay, so we're going to take a break for,
And why don't we also, Mr. Grunberg, can you consult with your other client and figure out what time you want to knock off to give your other client?
well, we were supposed to
time?
knock off 10 minutes ago.
I
so-
know.
Yeah, we're ready to switch now.
Okay, so how many more, we have two more
How many
individuals?
more- How many more questions for this witness?
Three,
And there are
Four.
members on Zoom.
four. Is there anybody on Zoom that has questions? Just let me know.
There's about at least three.
You have questions?
Okay,
So this would be the appropriate time, in my opinion, to knock off, take a break for our board stenographer, continue this hearing. Everyone's going to get the question, Mr. Ingram, at the continued hearing, which would be when?
Steve, I could put you on for September 5th.
So now, can you guys do September 5th?
I can do September 5th.
How about Mr. Ingram?
Yep.
okay, so we'll continue.
When is the time to decide this application up?
I think I gave an
Until
extension through
October,
October
yeah.
31st. So we're
Okay,
good.
so how about you extend to November 30th? And the board continue the hearing on this application to September 5 with no need for further notice. How's that sound?
The extension's
Can't
granted.
hear you.
The extension's granted. That's fine. Thank you.
So for all the individuals in the audience, that means that there'll be no notice, that the next meeting will be September 5th, and we'll get your questions in first. And I believe there's 3 or 4 here, and I believe
About 3
there's 3
online.
people online that want questions.
that I know of.
Okay, so we have quite a bit of questions.
Okay.
All
Great
right.
time, folks, right?
Thank you.
You're done?
Calling the meeting back to order. Just to let everyone know that this is recorded, and Taylor, I think if anyone wants to listen to the recording, it's on YouTube.
Yes, the recording will be posted on our YouTube page. You can find it when you go to the township websites, raritan-township.com. Under the board's page, you'll click on the Board of Adjustment, and to the end of the page, there's a frequently asked questions section, and you'll see recordings. And there's a little blue link that says click here, and it'll bring you to the board's meetings page. And both the planning board and Board of Adjustment meetings are recorded and posted hopefully the following day. So
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, the board stenographer is for the board. And if someone wants to order a transcript, this is not like a deposition where someone will go up there and say, oh, can you give me a readback? That doesn't happen. She's taking down a transcript in case someone wants to order it, which means they have to pay for it. That's why
Okay.
things are posted up on YouTube. So everyone, if you want to hear what was said, to refresh your recollection or whatever, you just go on your computer, click, and you can watch and hear.
Hopefully that will help anybody that has any questions. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm not. Okay, BOA case number. Oh, I'm sorry. Lindsay,
just say it
Okay.
and then I'll
Thank
make
you.
the announcement.
BOA case number 04-2024, applicant 207 Everett's Monsanto Properties LLP, location block 86, lots 3 and 4, 207 Everett's Road, applications for a minor subdivision with preliminary and final major site plan, D variance and C variance for a proposed contractor's yard.
And please note on the record that Lindsay Cool-Brengel has recused herself from this application.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson. Stephen Gruenberg Law Office on behalf of the applicant. Last year on May 16th, and we presented the testimony of Mr. Pimenta and Mr. Ingram. We got through a lot of Mr. Ingram's testimony, and some questions had been raised by the board that we wanted to address. So on May 20th, 2024, I sent a letter to the board providing you with the information regarding the RAO with respect to the environmental cleanup and the satisfactory cleanup on the 100 and concrete site. I also provided you with the information you requested pertaining to the JCP&L easements, indicating that we are not prohibited from using the property as that portion of the property as proposed. Mr. Ingram's office also submitted directly to the board information with respect to the septic and the county health department's approval of our permit, which he'll go into a little bit more detail on. And I know that questions had been asked with respect to impervious coverage, drainage, and the existing piles on site. And Mr. Ingram will have some exhibits and will provide testimony on that. So my intention this evening is to present Mr. Ingram's testimony to address those remaining questions of the board from the last meeting, and then go on with the testimony of our traffic expert and planner.
Who was sworn?
Everybody was sworn last time.
Okay.
Mr.
Who was the other?
William Maisel, our traffic engineer, and Henry Hinterstein, our planner, and Mr. Ingram.
Okay, and all the board professionals at this table, you guys were all sworn last time?
And actually, for the record too, I apologize. Jim Ferrero was not at the first hearing. He has watched the taping of it and he has signed his affidavit. So he is eligible to vote if there's a vote tonight.
Great, thank you. Thank you for doing that too. Appreciate that. So Mr. Ingram, you just heard me talk about the issues that we needed to address. Why don't you talk about the septic issue?
Sure. So at the board's request, to look at the existing septic and its ability to remain, we did an analysis. We provided it to the health department, which basically compared what the site was approved at originally to what we're proposing today. They concluded, as we did, that there is no increase in demand from the use. So that, what was existing is the same as what is proposed. Therefore, there's no requirement to replace the septic. The septic was inspected. It's basically a very long lateral system. They put a camera down it. It's dry. It's operating. So there was no unsatisfactory condition that requires it to be changed. The only thing they did ask us to do was if we would, not that there was anything wrong with it, but they said, could you replace the tank with one that meets current code and get it the right distance from the well? And we said, yes, we'll do that. So that's a repair permit application to just replace the existing tank. But other than that, we provided them the construction referral and they signed off on it to say that the system is legal and can remain.
With respect to the impervious coverage and the drainage, you prepared some exhibits that we presented to the board.
Yes, we provided the attached exhibit, which again, I believe was emailed to the board.
Can we see, can you,
Now, which one is this, Wayne?
Proposed drainage area plan dated
Okay.
6/24/24.
And I have hard copies. I will be handing them out to you all. And for those online, I will be putting it on the screen in a couple minutes. Thank you.
is there anyone in the public on this application other than on behalf of the applicant?
There are members on Zoom.
There are members on Zoom, so I'm going to take the exhibit board. Put behind here, so it doesn't matter if the
Right where it was.
in the room, no. And what exhibit number?
This would be A2.
You're handing out two things. So we have a site plan exhibit and we have a proposed drainage area plan. So which is exhibit A2 and which is A3?
This is A2 is the proposed drainage area plan. We may not even need the other one depending.
Okay, so the proposed drainage area plan exhibit is dated June 25, 2024, correct?
June 24, 24.
This says 25.
It says June 25, 24.
Okay, my bad. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And the purpose of this exhibit, and this was something we did as part of our drainage analysis, but really we're just blowing it up to explain to everybody because there was a concern raised about, the flooding that occurs on Everett's Road further down. So in our report, we documented what the different drainage areas are on our site. And, about 50% of our developed portion basically either goes to the rear where we have the wetlands in the back or what you can kind of see on the map is there's kind of a sweeping arc on the western side of the property, which is a constructed swale, which basically takes a lot of that drainage, cuts it off, and sends it to the back. So we're all feeding the same stream. We have a tributary here, the larger branch is here, but a good portion of our runoff is heading to the smaller tributary, which is not what's causing any of the flooding on Everett's Road. We do have a drainage area which goes to the front. That area is only going to be smaller impervious than it is today. So our proposal was basically to work within the limits of what was already existing in that area. And when we were out there, we actually also uncovered, which we highlighted in red on the north end, was just some even additional impervious. So when we started clearing things out, you know, if you go back historically here, the impervious was basically right up to the road. They had bins, they had, you know, all the material storage was all up on the street years ago. So the remnants of all that are still there. It's overgrown, but it's still impervious underneath. So, you know, it hasn't changed what we're proposing in terms of where we're going to be, but as part of what we're doing, we're going to take all those structures out and restore the area.
Okay, Exhibit A2 is now being broadcast on Zoom, is that correct?
So again, in essence, you know, the only drainage area that goes to the frontage, we are not the major contributor to your flooding on Everett's Road. That's related more to the capacity of the culvert and what goes into the stream. But what's coming off our site that goes down Everett's Road to it is reduced in the application without any further need for attenuation.
I'm sorry, Wayne, did you say that there was? I'm sorry. Bad day. Did you say that there is materials that are bordering Everett's Road today that you're going to clean up?
Correct. If you look at the highlighted area here, you can
Yes.
kind of see it on the exhibits, but there's old concrete pads.
Okay.
It shows on this plan shows better. Okay. Yeah. So maybe even the site plans are.
Yeah, let's go to exhibit, let's get exhibit A3 entered.
Yeah.
That's going to be a site plan exhibit dated June 25, 2024. That's the second thing that Taylor handed out.
Oh, it's A3? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is a site plan exhibit dated 6/25/24. So, Storage is correct. You can kind of see it in the exhibit. You know, if you go off the edge of what we're paving, you can kind of see these concrete, you know, structure areas, which, you know, they're the remains of block walls and concrete pads where they used to put the material storage from the concrete plant.
Okay, and you're
So-
going to remove those?
Correct. And,
Thank
you know,
you.
again, you come out to where our driveway is, all of that is just haphazard gravel and impervious. We're going to just tighten it up and bring it to a defined driveway. So it's not a massive change, but, you know, there's going to be less impervious than there is today.
There was questions by the board about existing piles on the site.
Can't hear you, Steve. Wait till.
There was questions from the board at the last meeting with respect to existing piles on the property.
Yep.
What did your investigation show?
And a lot of that is just kind of the confusion over what piles were always being referred to, because, or again, originally there were piles in the rear area that's currently impervious that were stockpiles of recycled material. Those were primarily removed. There are 2 remnant piles there. Really, what's going to happen is we're just going to level those out because it's the same material we're going to put down as base for the project. So we're going to take these piles, which, you know, I don't know, between 4 and 8 feet in height, and they're not large, and just spread them out to meet the grades that we have in the plan. That's the minor
Right, let me
problem.
ask, Jeff, do you have any pictures or anything of these piles?
I do. I have 3 that I'd like to submit as an exhibit and pass out, if that's okay.
Show it to them.
Yes, these are representative.
Well, hold on. We're going to be board exhibit 1, and let's give one to Steve and one to Wayne, and then hand the others out to the board. Show the piles that we're talking about?
Yes. I'll keep talking while those are getting passed out, but if you look on the first page, the more relevant piles I think we were concerned about are the ones we've highlighted on the.
This is being handed out as a B1, is a memo from Jeff Paparella, to the board dated July 18th, which has pictures on it.
And I think the ones we're mainly concerned about are the ones to the south highlighted on A3. There's two principal piles, there's two much smaller ones, but we have highlighted those areas. That's what you see in the first picture of Jeff's report. Like the other piles, they're basically processed material piles. So there's some stone and then there's some recycled concrete.
And you're allowed to spread recycled concrete for a base?
It would be our base, but I'll be honest, what you have here is more than we're probably going to need, maybe. So, but in any event, these piles have been here dating back prior to the PSE&G application, at least 10 years. They actually did it with some intent and design, because if you go across the back of them where it borders the wetlands, there's a super silt fence built. So they put that up along the concerned area, and then they built the pile inside of that.
Can you explain to the board what super silt fence means?
I mean, silt fence is basically you take a wood stakes with fabric in it to prevent that. Super silt fence is the same thing with more of like a metal mesh in it. It's
like a chain link fence behind.
Yeah, it's like a stronger version.
Photo 3, yes, photo 3 represents it.
Yep, you can see it in photo 3. So again, our intention, we would have removed them already if we didn't want to bring it to you first, because there's really nothing stopping us from removing it. The majority of them are not located within the wetland areas. A portion of the one pile does go into the transition area. But again, these were there when they approved the LOI in the first place and nothing was raised. Now, the reality is we don't want them there either. We're happy to remove them. It doesn't require a permit because we're not actually building anything in the wetlands, but we will contact the DEP before we remove them and let them know, hey, we have a material stockpile here. We don't think anything's wrong with it. You already looked at it, but we're telling you that we're going to get it out of there and restore the area. So it still is not requiring of a permit, but we will contact them so that they're aware of what we're doing. And again, at the end of the day, the piles will be gone and the area will be restored. We're not working back there with the project.
I think that addresses all the remaining questions that the board had at its last meeting.
That I'm aware of, yes.
Just a comment. Thank you so much for doing that flooding thing. And I'm satisfied with what you said. So thank you for that. Can I ask my colleague, Randy, you had issues about the piles. Was that addressed? I don't know.
Randy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. With the piles, you sure there's no cement underneath that?
So he's saying even if there is, he's saying that material could be used as a base.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a marketable product. It was the same type of thing they were creating at the concrete plant. So, it'll probably go to another job site or something like that. If we discover something else underneath, everything will be properly dealt with. But again, they were even here when the RAO was issued. So the DEP is fully aware that they were there.
Now, have you checked other areas for maybe cement being dumped or buried?
And
The cement being buried.
if we find anything, we would remove it and restore it.
Okay.
We don't know nothing seems to indicate that, but if we do find it, it would be appropriately removed.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Could you clarify what you meant by remove it and restore it?
I mean, basically, we're gonna take it down till we hit native material, and then we can, put back like a native, seed mix so that, native vegetation grows back up.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I guess my concern would be the compaction that would have taken place with that very heavy material sitting on top of that native soil for so many years. It's probably pretty substantially compacted. Is there anything that can be done to alleviate that?
Yeah, we can till it and follow the soil conservation standards for making sure that we've decompacted the soil. And that's done as part of the overall soil conservation plan, but we can make it applicable to the area of restoration.
Thank you.
No, Jim.
Jim, when you talk about. removing-
Jim, louder.
Jack,
Louder.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No.
No,
Put it like 1 inch from you.
Move your glasses, please. Now go.
Go. My question is, when you're talking about removing the material, what do you do?
Jim, I don't think that might.
It is on.
The question I heard is, what do we do with the material?
well, he's repeating it.
Maybe I didn't need the mic. What do you do?
So again, it's a processed material, the same as would, like when you crush concrete and you resell it and use it as base, that's exactly what it is. So they just, well, for whatever reason, they took the material and instead of selling it, they just pile it in the back. We don't know why. It was there before we owned the property. But, you know, so it'll basically, assuming that's all it is, it's just going to be remarketed and used in other construction projects.
Just gonna leave the site.
Yes. Yep. Whatever we don't need for our parking lot will be removed.
I'm just curious.
Wayne, a question. How would you know if there's any cement? How would you find out if there was any cement buried or dumped?
I mean, they're gonna, when they're loading it out, they're gonna take an excavator, they're gonna load it bucket by bucket. And if it continues to fall out as, you know, crushed material, it's recycled concrete. If they start hitting larger stuff, then they're just gonna, I mean, the applicant has a Class B recycling facility. He'll just take it to his own facility, crush it and sell it there. So if we find it, we're processing it.
Okay.
Got an answer for every question.
I hope.
I have a question. I wanted to find out kind of where we landed on the screen buffer issue. And just to refresh, so correct, we're creating a new lot. We have an existing and proposed commercial use on that the applicant is proposing. So along that property line, the ordinance requires a type A screen buffer, and none is currently proposed.
Are you?
And the new lot presumably has a residential use, because you're not seeking.
We're proposing farming, not a residential use at this time. If we, yeah, we said agriculture in the last meeting because because frankly, we don't want to install the buffer.
Is it residentially zoned?
Right.
Property.
What does the
Yes.
ordinance say? Residential zone or residential use?
Both.
Right.
So again, our contention is, I don't know why we would need to buffer the limits of our property from property that we're going to own. If he decides, I mean, he's going to farm the property.
You need an exception.
We would need an exception.
Right.
We are requesting it, and the reason would be that we don't have a plan for over here. We're not, if we came back with an application, maybe, to the board, maybe that would be a better time to ask us what buffer is appropriate. If he even decided to put a single family house, my argument would be, if he wants to try to sell a house that doesn't have enough buffer here, he's going to do one of two things. He's either going to install it so he can actually sell the house because they don't want to look at this, or, he doesn't, and their lot will sit there. So it would be in his interest to do it, but because he owns it, we don't know why we should have to buffer at this time, given that we don't really know the ultimate use here. We're not trying to hurt anyone else. We just don't want to do it because it might not be beneficial for whatever happens here in the long run. We'd rather kick the can down the road to when it becomes appropriate. That's the reason.
So an exception is required in this case?
Yes.
All right, and there was also a requirement for a type B buffer along the road. And do I remember that you did agree to provide supplemental planting as required to meet that requirement?
Yes, I thought, given the intensity of the mature vegetation, I thought rather than come up with a plan, what we would like to agree to is to work with you on filling in that with what you deem appropriate, to meet the kind of screening that we believe is necessary. I think that's the best way, is to do it in the field rather than to put things on a plan.
I agree. And then the last item was relative to the buffer, is that as the part of the prior approval of the cell phone tower facility, there was a buffer installed at the north. No, it wasn't installed at the tower. It's installed at the, I'm going to call that the northwest corner of the property. There was an approved plan with a buffer planting that exists, and that should be restored, maintained. I don't know whether that's your responsibility or the responsibility of the, so.
This is the owner of the property. It's gonna be their problem. If the board approves this, my recommendation, legal advice is you impose the obligation. If the lease says the tenant has to do it, that'll be for them to enforce.
And I mean, that is the area that we did propose, like a staggered row of evergreens. I mean, we were intending to do that to help that homeowner. I think there needs to be more. We'll do
Understood.
whatever.
The planting actually wrapped around the entire corner along Everett's Road because the intention was to screen the properties on Sunflower Lane. That was the issue at the time. And the decision was made, rather than try to put an evergreen, a planting at the base of the cell phone tower, we put something over in that corner to kind of cut down the angle. So I'd like to kind of see that, and that could be a part of your planting. I don't.
Sure, yeah, we don't object. I mean, if it's a question of putting it back to what was approved, which is probably greater, then we'll do that instead.
Yeah.
And we'll work out who's responsible.
Okay, and I just had one last question, Dad, with regard to the compaction, which I think we were talking about the area adjacent to the wetland and so forth. It's in the buffer. I mean, my recommendation would be, you're going to have some big equipment there anyway. The only thing that's really going to tilling would be insufficient. You're going to have big equipment there, put a ripper on the back of a big machine and break up the compaction that way.
We agree.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Ingram?
I have a quick question. I was wondering if there was any possibility, and I know that with this particular kind of use, it would be probably tricky, but to integrate some kind of planting islands, maybe to define your tenant spaces, but most importantly, to add some shade, kind of an urban heat island effect reduction.
I would tell you that unfortunately what would happen if you do that in a facility like this, number one, they're going to die because the heat from everything around them is just going to kill them. Number two, whatever equipment and things that are moving around, it's not going to be long before they hit and destroy it. I think, we chose the limit of what we were doing so that we didn't increase anything over what it already was. At the very least, what we can say is the effects of any of that are not changing. We didn't want to be greedy and say like, let's cover the whole site in this. We said, let's stick to what it already is. And we think that's probably the best way to do it.
It's not like it's an office complex either.
No.
Yeah, we don't, because, if it was, that's fine. Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
I have one question. Can you please address the accessory shed and concrete area that's on the railroad property?
Well, the shed, we don't even know whose shed it is. It's on the railroad properties. We haven't used it and I don't know. So.
There's a shed that's not on their property.
Right, it's not our property. So I'm just going to say I'm not going to take any responsibility for it as the applicant because we don't know anything about it. It's not on our lot. It's probably more of an issue for the railroad if they want it gone or they need to address it, whatever. We don't even know if we have ownership.
Have you looked to see if there's anything in the shed?
Nope.
I don't think it's off their property, so it's not on them. If you want to go out there and see if you can peek in and see what's in the shed.
I was just confirming that it wasn't part of their.
No, okay. It's certainly not part of our operation. We are not aware. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else for Mr. Ingram?
No.
Let's call Mr. Mason.
Hold, is there anyone on Zoom? Can't hear you.
Let me just double check.
Now I hear you.
If anybody online has any questions, please ask now for Mr. Wayne Ingram.
It's probably my mother from the last application. Susan, say, don't have any questions, Mom.
Really couldn't see that.
Nope, nothing.
But she's proud of you.
I'd like to call Mr. Mason. Come on now.
Maisel, the spelling of your last name one more time?
Yes, that's M as in Mary, ASOL. William?
Could you please give the board the benefit of your qualifications?
Yeah, sure. So I am a graduate of Stevens Institute of Technology with a bachelor's.
Well, slow.
North Jersey, sorry about that. I'm a graduate of Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey. I have a professional engineering license in the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing for about 16 years now, with 12 of that being licensed. My license is in good standing. I have spent the entirety of my career in transportation and municipal engineering fields. I'm currently the municipal engineer in 2 different townships up in Morris and Warren counties as well.
And who's your employer?
I work with French and Perillo Associates, same as Mr. Ingram.
Okay, and what's your engineering specialty?
My engineering specialty is transportation and municipal engineering.
So you are the applicant's traffic engineering expert.
I am, yes.
Okay.
I offer him as an expert in that field.
We'll accept.
Mr. Mazel, can you give the board the benefit of your evaluation of this site and the traffic impacts that might result?
Sure. So I prepared a report dated January 11th, 2024, which was a traffic impact report for the site. As part of that, we compared the pre-existing concrete plant facility to the proposed use by the applicant. Typically we would use trip generation rates, which are contained in one of 2 sources. The NJDOT has ones from their highway access permit system, and then the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is a national organization, has ones that they publish as well. These are all based on data that has been collected by various traffic engineers over decades. What they do is they provide land use codes for different types of land uses, and they say, well, here is either a straight multiplication or a formula to determine how much traffic that particular land use is going to generate in peak hours and throughout the course of entire days. What we do is we will take the trip generation from the prior approved land use and set that as a baseline, and then take the proposed use and say, okay, what's the delta between those 2? That's going to be the impact between what was at that site and what is now being proposed. Unfortunately, neither the NJDOT or ITE has a specific concrete plant land use code. So we had to use what we considered to be the closest land use code to that. That was a specialty trade contractor. It's actually the same land use code that the proposed use fits under. Since the size of the building is not being changed, the delta is 0 in that particular instance. We also took a look at just thinking about the operations of that former use. Concrete plant, you have trucks coming in, bringing materials, you have trucks coming out, pick up concrete. So we took a look at an intermodal truck terminal as well, thinking that the operations might operate a little more similar to that. What it did is it actually raised that prior existing use trip generation. So to be more conservative, we stuck with the specialty trade contractor. But in reality, that prior approved use might have a little bit of a higher traffic generation than what we actually used in our analysis. We wanted to be a little more conservative. So as I mentioned, because the size of the building isn't changing, because the land use codes aren't changing, the site, the only difference we had in the proposed use is we took a look at that underlying zoning of being single family residential and said, all right, that separate lot that we are piecing out, what's the trip generation associated with that? In the AM peak hour, that comes out to be 2 trips. In the PM peak hour, that comes out to be 2 trips. Over the course of an entire day, 12 plus hours, 172 trips. On weekends, it goes up a little bit, but there is some anomalies in both the ITE and the HAPS that actually puts your weekend peak hours somehow higher than what they anticipate you generating all day. It's a very odd situation when you're dealing with only one home. As you increase the number of single family homes you're developing, that rectifies itself. But so ultimately what we concluded is that there is a insignificant increase in traffic from this proposed development.
Is this location of this property very convenient because it has access to Route 20231 just to the east
Yes, I would agree with that.
and at a traffic signal controlled intersection,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Just a quick question. You've seen Jay Troutman's report dated May 14, 2024, correct?
I have, yes.
Look under his comment number 4. Do you agree with his conclusion that the proposed use will generate higher traffic than a permitted use in the zone, but the same or less traffic than the prior concrete plant use?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, but what you're saying is even though it will generate higher traffic than a permitted use, you're saying it's at an insignificant increase?
That is correct. The NJDOT actually defines what they consider to be a.
They're 100 trips a day.
Yeah, they're at 100 trips a
I
day.
understand, but that,
We're at a quarter of that.
yeah, peak hour. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. There are a couple other things I can address in Mr. Troutman's letter, if
Yeah,
you'd
you
like.
might as well. I think that's the best use of time.
All right. So item number 3, we agreed with the fact that there isn't a good match for that former concrete plant. I'd also encourage the board to take a look at the fact that, based upon the trips being generated in total by the proposed use, even if you said that the existing site was vacant and 0, it still was only about 30 trips in a peak hour. On the weekend peak, I think that ups a little bit, but with the proposed hours of operation.
Item 5, right?
Yes, this is item 5. The proposed hours operation, he asked for, some additional information regarding potential tenants. As was testified to at the last meeting, we don't really know what the tenants are going to be exactly yet. So the exact operations are hard to analyze. That is why we lean
If it's a
into.
contractor's yard, though, the applicant must have some idea of the sort of, it's going to be construction trades related tenants like plumbers, electricians,
Things of that
general
nature.
contractors, things like that.
Things of that nature, yes.
So can you comment, are you aware of, in general, are you going to have a snow plowing service out there?
That could be one of the uses, I'm
Okay, because
sure.
snow plowing service would be sometimes 24/7. Right, but if you didn't have a snow plowing service, other than emergencies, do most contractors work past, dark?
Most contractors I know are trying to get out of the site that they're at by 3:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
So they would be wrapped up usually probably in the mid to late, the evening hours as the latest, I would anticipate.
So based on your years of experience doing this, assuming that there were all different sorts of contractor tenants, 'cause that's the proposals for a contractor's yard.
Yep.
Outdoor storage of thing, when would you expect?
I would expect the AM and PM peak hours to
So
be the,
in the morning when they have to go out, bring equipment or material.
Correct.
And then after they're done with the job, putting stuff back.
correct. And that is exactly what was analyzed, those AM and PM peak hours. Regarding item number 6, the site distance condition at the site driveway. As the board is aware, Everett Road kind of curves to the east of the site, so there's really not much we can do in that particular location. The driveway is located all the way at that east end of the site. In theory, you could improve that site distance by moving the driveway to the other end, but it would take out all of the trees that are there. There's a large hill there. It's really not the best design for the overall site, even though it would improve that issue to some extent. Once again, the size of the trucks that are going to access the site, I'm sure there'll be some single unit trucks,
Again, size of trucks, item 7.
Yes, this is item 7. I would imagine there'd be some single unit trucks, maybe some pickup trucks with trailers, things of that nature. The site has been designed with those thoughts in mind.
Let me ask you this, if they're proposing, I saw somewhere, of course I can't find it now, I think, did they say somewhere about like maybe they're contemplating 10 tenants, or am I imagining that?
It was up to 10 tenants.
Okay, so if there were 10 tenants on the site, you guys know how many square feet, if you whacked it up as evenly as possible in the areas where you can store stuff, how many square feet each of the tenants would have? And the reason I'm asking, do you think you'd have any highway construction, heavy very large vehicle contractors there? Or are you talking basically, non-highway construction tenants?
I think the testimony was that we weren't proposing any snowplow contractors.
I understand.
And that it was all light contracting. No
Yeah.
heavy contracting. It was
How-
all light
Right, what sort
contractors.
of condition could be crafted to make sure that that in fact happens? Because I don't think there's a thing that light contracting is not a thing. I understand what you're saying, but maybe pick some vehicle sizes that are not allowed on the site, other than during construction.
We'll let them hash that one out for them.
Yeah.
Might have to review the testimony from before, but I think we did provide testimony that we're going to have excavators and those type of things, but it's.
Yeah, but excavator is not, that's not, the highway construction vehicles I'm talking about is not an excavator.
What types, what types of vehicles are you
Correct.
talking about? No cranes?
Yeah.
Nothing
Right.
like that.
So I'm asking you to craft some sort of condition for me that would take care of the intent of what you're talking about.
Can you give me a moment to
Yeah,
confer here?
Yeah. Use of the word smaller and larger and medium, unacceptable. Yes, maybe like a limitation by weight, or if you actually know the numbers on the,
We're saying
Caterpillar vehicles.
No greater than a 50-ton vehicle, so it would be a crane or those huge, large dump trucks or, large trucks, but no greater than 50 tons.
Can you say that into the microphone, Steve?
Can't hear you.
No greater than 50 tons. Vehicle or equipment,
No greater than 50-ton vehicles and equipment.
correct?
Sounds good to me. I don't know how it sounds to Jay, yes? John, action-wise? Yeah. Okay.
I think I have addressed everything else in Mr. Troutman's report.
Anybody have any questions?
The one item I just wanted to point out for the board, which you may have already seen, is that they are posting a no left turn restriction going out of there because that narrow road to the west is not where we want them, and they're using the good facilities to the east. And just, I'm sure you'll agree to Title 39 enforcement.
We agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have another witness?
Do you want to open it up to the public to ask questions?
No.
I always get yelled at for not
Is
doing
there
that.
anyone from the public? If there any,
She's off now.
okay, Wayne's
I'm a
mother
little offended.
stepped away.
Let her know.
So there's no one online?
Wayne, you scared your mother away. You should be ashamed of yourself.
No questions from anyone.
Mr. Hinterstein.
Thank you very much.
First thing, how do you spell your last name?
Oh, that's a good one. Hinterstein. Henry?
And if you could please give the board the benefit of your qualifications.
Yes, I'm a Rutgers graduate. I have a degree in environmental planning and design from Cook College, Rutgers University. I'm a licensed landscape architect and a licensed professional planner. I've been a licensed landscape architect for approximately 30 years, a licensed professional planner for 20 years. My licenses are in good standing. I also have appeared before approximately 50 to 60 boards throughout the state of New Jersey as an expert in both landscape architecture and professional planning. And that's about it.
I offer Mr. Hinterstein as an expert in the field of planning.
And just planning or also landscape architecture?
Landscape architecture too.
If you have a question.
If there's a
Right?
question.
Both, right?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, we will accept. Before we move on, can we just state that we have 20 minutes? And I don't know if you can wrap up in 20 minutes, but we're hoping not to go over.
He will be efficient in his time and giving the.
I want to give him plenty of time. I
He'll be
mean,
efficient but slow.
That's why I said efficient.
I'm not, you know,
If I go too fast, please just tell
if
me.
you feel you have to
slow
just,
down.
if you feel you have to justify because you're concerned that we may vote, deny, then please go on. It's more important that you get everything in.
Correct. And not only that, but if you want to get a seventh member to vote, you can always, just go a little 10, and then even if you finish your testimony, you can ask for a continuance, but Steve can talk to the client about that.
Yeah, let's start his testimony and see
Yeah.
where we are.
Okay.
So if you could please give the board the
Yeah.
benefit of your analysis.
Sure. I'm not going to give really a big rundown on the background of the property. I think you've heard enough about that.
Agreed.
The proposed application results in the need of several D1 use variances, along with some associated bulk variances, as noted in the application as outlined in the planner's review memo of the application. The D1 use variances required for the proposal include the use as a contractor's yard, which is not permitted in the AR5 zone. The proposed use of the property for more than one principal use, the contractor's yard and the cell tower, and outside storage of vehicles, equipment, materials is also not permitted in residential zones. The C bulk variances required for the proposal include a variance for the general design standards for parking areas.
Sorry about that. There, I got it.
Okay.
I'm up now.
To permit existing hard surface cover located on the proposed lot, 3.01, to remain relatively the same, although the percentage of covered is increasing as a result of the subdivision. And any other variance which may have been brought up, but I don't believe there was any additional variances that came up. In granting relief with D1 use variance, obviously we need to meet the standard set in the Medici versus BPR company case. That is that the special reasons or finding the site is particularly suitable for the use is needed to meet the positive criteria, while both prongs of the negative criteria must be addressed. The first prong being that the variance can be granted without any substantial detriment to the public good. And the second prong being that the variance can be granted without substantial impairment to the intent purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinances. As for the positive criteria, particular suitability, I believe that the site is particularly suited for the proposed. Sure.
Yeah. And slow, when you do particular suitability.
Yeah.
Give me a separate particular suitability for the
I will.
prohibited contractor's yard.
Yep.
Separate particular suitability for two principal uses on the site, separate particular suitability for outdoor storage of vehicles and equipment and material, even though you might have the same reasons, break them out separately.
Okay, to that point, the contractor's yard with the outdoor storage of equipment is really exactly the
same?
same. So I would say, let me lump those two together, and
Okay.
I'll give you the separate analysis for the two uses on the one site. So again, although located in the AR5 zone, 100 in concrete and PSE&G used and operated the site for many years without any substantial negative impacts to the neighboring lots.
You're going way too fast,
Okay.
man. Even for me, I'm taking notes.
Okay, no problem. The 100 in concrete use is of particular note, since this operation is historically much more intense of a use than a contractor's yard. There is limited activity with the contractor's yard, predominantly at the start and end of the workday. The concrete operation continually produces and ships concrete via trucks all day long, resulting in more traffic and noise.
Is this a quickie? But the historic concrete use no longer exists, right?
Correct. That's correct. And
Right,
I'm
yeah.
just making a comparison.
Okay.
With the exception of much larger footprint that was used for that other operation, including the entirety of lot 3 and a portion of lot 4. And that was for the previous use as the concrete plant and also the PSE&G storage of equipment. B, or second note, is the location. The subject property is very close in proximity and adjacent to US Route 202-31, a major US interstate highway, providing access to other major roadways within and outside the state. Only one commercial property and other vacant land exists between the subject property and the highway. Whichever road directly connects to, a very short distance away, via the signalized intersection on 202-31. This provides easy access again to the highway with the least amount of disturbance to the few residential homes that exist to the northwest of the site. The property is relatively secluded with Highway 202-31 located to the east. I'm sorry. The property is relatively secluded with the highway located to the east along one commercial property located to the north, which is really a farm, the solar farm to the south, an agricultural use to the north and west, and a cluster of single-family residential homes located to the northwest corner of the property. And what helps add to the seclusion of this property, and I think makes it particularly suited for this use, is that the grades or the elevations of the existing property are approximately 9 to 20 feet higher than the surrounding properties, particularly the properties located to the northwest of the site, which are the residential homes.
Can you repeat that one?
Sure. So again, what helps add to the seclusion of the lot is the fact that the existing and proposed grades of the contractor's yard are between 9 and 20 feet higher than the adjacent properties to the north and northwestern corner respectively. This helps substantially visually screen the property from Everett Road and the residential homes located to the northwest of the site. The site is completely screened from Everett Road and homes located on the northwest corner of the site with substantial trees and other vegetation, which I think was apparent in the exhibits.
And we agreed to even augment that. if
Correct.
necessary.
Correct. And D, finally, the proposed use as the contractor's yard and the outside storage also promotes a couple of the purposes of the municipal land use law, including A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use of development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, and morals and general welfare.
Give me specifics. How is it promoting the general welfare or the health? To use it as a contractor's yard?
Yeah, because it's putting a use where sort of commercial in nature, a contractor's yard, which would typically not be a great compatibility with a residential use, but because of the close proximity to the highway and the easy access, that's how it's promoting the general welfare, by providing easy access to an interstate highway where trucks can get in and out with the least amount of disturbance to the homes to the northwest of the site.
Is that also a promotion of the general welfare by cleaning up the site and the removal of the concrete building that this?
It is, and I was going to touch on that more so in the negative criteria.
Yeah, I would, this whole thing to me is the negative criteria. How about this? Permitted uses. If you wanted to put residential use, which is permitted here, isn't it true you'd have to do substantial disturbance of all the existing services out there? But here, your proposed contractor's yard use, kind of reusing, repurposing?
Pretty much any of the allowed uses on this property. If we would do that, it would require substantial disturbance to the
Right.
property.
So wouldn't that?
That would be a general welfare
Right.
proponent,
And,
purpose.
okay, so hold on, let me just take it down. All right, what other purposes, keeping in mind your testimony about most of the permitted uses would have to result in substantial disturbance of the
Correct.
site. What other purposes of the MLUL would be advanced?
Purpose G, which is to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses and open space, both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens.
So again, I
So
assume you're
again-
going to focus on the environmental part of G, correct?
Exactly. It's the same thing that, again, it's providing a commercial use, which, again, this purpose addresses, but it's doing it with the least amount of disturbance to the environment and to the surrounding community.
What else? You don't need any others, but if you
I
have.
don't,
any-
I just have one more, and that's M, to encourage coordination of the various public and private procedures and activities. Yep, to encourage the coordination of the various public and private procedures and activities, shaping land development with the view of lessening the cost of such development and the more efficient use of land. Again, efficient use of land. This is repurposing, redeveloping a property that is in disrepair, that has, it's an eyesore, it's putting it back to good use with the least amount of disturbance, bringing it back to a purposeful, taxable use.
Can you provide the board the benefit of your evaluation of the negative criteria?
Well, before he does that, go to the special reasons now for the two principal uses.
Two principal uses. The cell tower has been in existence at the site since approximately the year 2000, while the property was used as both Hunterdon concrete and subsequently as a PSE&G storage yard. The tower has received approval from this board previously. The tower has received approval from this board previously, along with several of the service providers that have been co-located on the tower. All the use.
Your bottom line, the tower has had no negative impact
No
whatsoever.
negative impact. It's
And-
coexisted with the existing uses on that property previously.
And the applicant is proposing to restore the landscaping that this board imposed when it approved the cell tower in the first place, correct?
Correct.
Now go to the negative criteria.
So the negative criteria for the storage yard and the use as a contractor's yard, as far as the first prong, I don't feel approving the site as a contractor's yard will cause any substantial detriment to the public good or surrounding area. The site has been historically used as a more intense concrete manufacturing and distribution plant and a storage and staging yard.
Listen, for the negative criteria, forget what the concrete plant was
Gotcha.
doing. How is this proposal?
We're decreasing the impervious coverage, although slightly. We're redeveloping the site with the least amount of disturbance possible within the existing footprint of the disturbance that exists there
So you're
today.
decreasing impervious. and-
Although it's slightly, but it
No,
is
but you're
decreasing.
decreasing
Correct.
impervious and the traffic impact,
Should
even
be-
though it's technically more than a permitted use,
It's less than the
it's
previous.
it's insignificant.
And it's insignificant to the traffic patterns. Also of note is that the site is being cleaned up. There's the environmental benefit of the decrepit site structures that are being removed, the piles of concrete and other disturbances are going to be cleaned up.
And let's
and-
ask Steve, just remind me from May, did we have a limit on how many feet high? I think we talked about, you were going to come back with a limit on how many feet high could a contractor, stack stuff? For the same reason that you're not going to have a crane there. What's your, whether it's a stack of stone or it's a stack of block or whatever?
We agreed to a single stacked containers was the testimony from the past meeting, and no higher than 20 feet of material, which is the height of the lights.
How high is a single stack container? How high is a typical container? Wayne, how high is a container? Okay, why do you need 20, why do you need to go 20 feet to the light fixtures with material?
It was more of everything. So like if the back of a backhoe arm hangs up higher than that. We picked 20 because 20 was the height of the lights,
Okay.
and we had a taller structure in the maintenance building. So we're picking that as a reasonable number that is significantly lower than the tower that's out there, and making sure that anything we reasonably consider would be there would be less.
How about 20 feet is the maximum height for equipment or vehicles, but how about materials? How about 12 feet, the same height?
We agree, 12, the height of the
Okay.
container. Yep.
Okay, so now you're going to take those limitations and, right, and that would also go towards satisfying the negative criterion, correct?
Yes, because we're going to be limiting, there's some of the allowed uses,
Right.
farm agriculture uses that could potentially allow for taller outside storage than even the 20 feet. So in that sense, it's an improvement.
And by limiting the visual impact, there wouldn't be, is it fair to say there wouldn't be a substantial detriment to the public good, which is the standard?
That's correct. There would be no substantial detriment. And one of the reasons is because we're going to be of the existing vegetation that exists there now,
Put it
the
this way.
vegetation
Boom.
that we're adding.
Done. Okay, C variances.
C variances. There's 2 bulk variances. I believe both of these could be justified under the flexible C2 criteria. The general design standards for parking areas, I believe, are intended for more traditional parking areas in office, retail, and other commercial locations. The proposed use is sort of unique in that the general design standards, if followed, would actually have, I think, a detrimental impact to this type of operation. So I think the deviation from the standards will allow for the efficient use and circulation of the contractor's yard
Put it this way,
without
the
resulting in
most
site.
contractors, can you think of any contractor's yard in the state of New Jersey that would comply with all the paving, curbing, and?
No.
No. Okay. How about the
As far as the bulk variance for hard surface
Yeah,
regulation,
yeah.
that is a direct correlation to the subdivision that's taking place. So the percentage is being increased very slightly. Again, although the amount of impervious coverage is actually being reduced on the site that exists there today. So again, I think this is a de minimis or
But
negligent.
what
It's-
is the hard surface coverage of the entire lot today?
It's being exceeded to 46.59%.
No, that's
I
the
believe.
proposed. What is the current hard surface coverage on the lot today?
We're looking it up.
Are you asking for the lot as it exist, the 2 lots as they exist now, or the entire?
I want
2
the
parcels?
entire, and I want the existing hard surface coverage on the lot as proposed to be subdivided, but not with the improvements, with the existing hard surface there.
The existing coverage of lot 301 is 46.87%.
Okay. I'm just curious, what is the lot coverage for the proposed new lot?
Proposed lot is 46.59.
No,
Percentage?
I'm talking about the vacant lot.
Vacant lot, 0 in the proposed.
No.
In the existing,
Yes.
it's extremely low. The only thing is an abandoned house. It's
Okay.
virtually 0.
Okay, so you're going from an existing 46.87 and you're reducing that to 46.59. And the maximum is 20%. And so these benefits of
Right.
exceeding the 20%, I assume, are the same special reason it's repurposing, yada, yada, yada?
Right, and not disturbing the property to develop something much greater.
I think that was yada, yada, yada versus South Brunswick Township. That was the case.
Yeah. Okay, and then Jeff has these other, well, I got the C variance for the proposed tenant dividing walls in front of the building. What is that?
I don't recall that being a variance, but where were you providing?
It's more, I believe was there testimony about delineation of the tenants? Whether or not, what materials were included for that?
we said we were going to provide a bollard delineator to delineate the different tenants, and it was going to be put at the limit of the driveway so that the driveway could always remain clear. And because we don't know how many spaces a tenant would take, it would be determined as a tenancy was filled out, but it would always be delineated along the driveway.
I think we noticed for that or provided that as a potential variance, just because it wasn't known whether you would call that a structure or not.
You don't think they need a variance, correct?
No, not since the new ordinance was passed.
Okay.
So
I have no other questions. I think we're done with the positive and the negative.
Yeah, and just for the record, there was testimony regarding no maintenance and repair conducted outside of the building.
Correct.
So no need of additional P1 variance.
Correct.
Mr. Grunberg, do you have a closing statement?
I do have a closing statement. This is an excellent readaptive use of this property, and we would ask for you to act favorably on our application.
Thank you for that short.
I saw the look.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or concerns before we close for deliberation?
Well, Cynthia, we do have members online. I'm sorry if you would like to open it to them.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's open it to them.
To the two people online, if you have any comments, questions on
If
the
you have any
overall.
questions, ask them. If you have any comments, I'm going to have to see you to swear you in.
Oh, thank you.
See if they have any questions or if they want to make any comments.
No, sir. Nothing's going on.
Okay. We're closing for deliberation.
And just for the record, anything in any of the experts' reports that you haven't talked about, if it requires a revision or there's some condition suggested, you're agreeing that they should be conditions of approval, correct?
Correct.
And the board's general rules, generally, do you need any extra time before you get any construction permits and before you're finished with anything you have to do or not?
No, I think we're hot.
Pedal to the metal.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
There we go.
Sure, go. You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I'll do it in one.
And by the
I mean,
way, if you can, in your deliberations, if you want, you can say for the reasons that the planner
Yeah,
testified. And take care of that.
So I'm in favor the application. I do want to make a couple of comments. I did go visit your site on 165 and it's very well run. And I'm expecting it will be the same or better. Yeah, and given that, I think it's going to make the environment in that area better. We talked about the reasons why both the neighborhood as well as the environment is going to get better with this. It's very suitable because of accessibility is very easy, 202, 31. And above all, I think there is a need for this kind of application. I think in your opening statements, you had mentioned that. And I do believe there is, I've done some research. I think it's very much needed in our community. And then it's going to help other things which are going around. So I'm totally in favor of this.
Okay, I'll go. Sorry, not a good day. Okay, first of all, thank you for the application and the presentation. I think it was very thorough. I am in favor of this application. I think it's a great redevelopment. I think it's great for the local business. I think it's needed. I think cleaning up the site, it's a vacant site now, it's not in use, all positive. It's included, it's secluded, it's in the perfect location. So I would be in favor.
I agree with my colleagues. I think that I like this application.
Is that sweet enough for you?
Yes, it is perfect. Thank you.
I think it's a good use.
He thinks it's.
Can't hear you, Jim.
Yeah, got some money. I think it's a good use of this particular piece of property. One thing I'm concerned with, I don't see is that all the vehicles parked on the property licensed and fully functional, don't turn it into a junkyard.
Actually, that's a good point. I should have asked. Right, there should be a condition imposed that all vehicles on the site have to be registered.
Yep.
Registered and operable.
Lorette?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I support and agree with this project. I think it's again, not to reiterate, but I think it's the right use in the right place and it's needed. And I am very grateful that the work is being done to restore that wetland and that kind of environmental sensitive area so that it functions more as green infrastructure, which I believe is a big plus to the community, especially the nearby neighborhood.
I'm in favor for all the reasons that were listed before. I also appreciated Mr. Grunberg's comment about adaptive reuse. It's something that I'd like to see going on more in our community because there's a lot of sites in the area that could use adaptive reuse.
Yeah.
Rather than tearing down and doing God knows what. I think this is an excellent example of what we can hopefully see more of in the township. And I'm in favor. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve with all the conditions? And please do not list them.
I will not. Took good
Please.
notes.
So moved.
Second.
Can I get a vote?
Chairman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Russell Domji.
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Yes.
Ms. Lorette Cortina.
Yes.
Mr. James Miller.
Yes.
Thank you all very much for the 5-minute courtesy as well and for the approval. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you to the board's
you.
professionals as well. for their review.
Okay,
Get those 5 minutes back from you next time.
thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Oh, it's nice to finally
Anybody
finish
opposed?
one of these
Forget it.
monsters.